Chapter 447. Honey? Although the other party's voice was sweet and charming, Qin Haodong was still stunned. It was the first time he had set his feet on the land of Shanghai. When did he have such a wife? He looked at the girl in front of him. At first glance, he could tell that she was a delinquent girl. She wore big metal earrings, her hair was fluffy like a chicken's nest, and she was wearing a tight vest and a miniskirt. Moreover, the inside of the vest was empty. The two towering peaks were not bound, but they could still maintain a full arc. Two slender legs were straight, exuding a charming halo under the light of the street lamps. It seemed that the girl was less than 20 years old. Qin Haodong said, "Little girl, did you recognize the wrong person?" The delinquent girl seemed to run over. She gasped and said, "Honey, you're joking again. Didn't we just roll in the sheets?" While he was talking, suddenly a burst of messy footsteps came from behind. More than a dozen gangsters, holding steel pipes and knives in their hands, ran quickly towards them. The bald man, who was the leader, was aggressive. His forehead was full of blood. It seemed that he had just been hit. "Boss, this little girl is here." With a shout, more than a dozen gangsters surrounded Qin Haodong and the delinquent girl in the middle. The delinquent girl hugged Qin Haodong's arm and pressed her full chest tightly against it. She looked back at the gangsters and said, "Don't mess around. I'm telling you, my husband is here." The bald man covered his head and said angrily, "Bitch, you dare to crack open my bald brother's head? Not to mention your husband, even old Lord Taisheng won't be able to do anything to you." Seeing the scene in front of him, Qin Haodong had already understood that the delinquent girl was obviously using him as a gun. No wonder she called him husband as soon as they met. The delinquent girl said nervously, "Get out of here. My husband is a third Dan Taekwondo black belt, or he will beat you up." The bald man gritted his teeth and said, "I don't care if you have a black belt or a white belt. I'm going to F***ck you today." He waved his hand and shouted to the gangsters behind him, "Go." "Wait a minute." Qin Haodong pushed the girl away and said to the bald man, "I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm not her husband, and I don't know her." Although he didn't put these hooligans in his eyes at all, he didn't want to be used as a gun by this delinquent girl. Hearing his words, the delinquent girl hurriedly cried, "Honey, how can you do this? You can't leave them alone. These people will make you a cuckold. Coward. Soft egg. At such a critical moment, you don't even dare to care about your own woman." The bald man had already determined that Qin Haodong was the girl's boyfriend, but he was frightened by them. He shouted, "Brothers, take this guy back with us. We'll let him see how his woman has fun with us later." "Yes, boss." These gangsters didn't take Qin Haodong, who looked like a student, seriously. They swarmed up and seemed to want to tie him up and take him back. Qin Haodong frowned and said, "I'll say it again. I don't know you, and I don't know her. I don't care what you do, but don't make trouble for me." The delinquent girl hid behind him and cried, "Honey, don't be polite to them. Teach them a good lesson. How dare you pretend when you're about to die? F***ck. The bald man shouted to his subordinates, "Beat him. Scratch his face first. I hate gigolos the most." After listening to him, a yellow-haired gangster immediately took a dagger and slashed at Qin Haodong's face. Qin Haodong's face was cold. He didn't want to get involved in this, but these gangsters didn't know what was good for them. The yellow-haired gangster had the attitude of a cat playing with a mouse. He looked proud and playful. But when the dagger was just in front of Qin Haodong, he suddenly felt that his hand was light, and then there was a sharp pain in his shoulder. The knife was stuck in his shoulder. Before he could scream, his whole body had been kicked by Qin Haodong and fell into the bushes on the side of the road in a beautiful arc. The other gangsters rushed over when they saw that their companion was injured. But they were no match for a Wu Dao Grand Master. In the blink of an eye, they were all put down to the ground and screamed. The delinquent girl was already dumbfounded on the spot. She was originally anxious because she was being chased. She wanted to find a man to boost her courage and scare away the gangsters behind her. She didn't expect to find such a fierce man by accident. Could it be that he was really a Taekwondo 3rd Dan black belt? Chin Haodong stepped in front of the bald man and slapped him in the face. Why don't you practice all kinds of martial arts? Why do you have to practice being AB*TCH? I said she has nothing to do with me, but you still want to be slapped. Tell me, are you AB*TCH? The bald man also realized that he had met a tough guy. He quickly lowered his head and said, I'm sorry, brother. I was blind. You are a generous man. Please let me go this time. Get out. Don't let me see you again. Chin Haodong shouted angrily, but the gangsters ran away in the blink of an eye as if they had been granted amnesty. Seeing that the trouble had finally been solved, the delinquent girl patted her bulging chest and breathed a sigh of relief. She turned around and wanted to leave quietly. But before she could take a few steps, she heard a slap, followed by a burning feeling on her butt. She turned back, glared at Chin Haodong and shouted, What are you doing? Why did you spank me? Chin Haodong said with a playful smile, Didn't you say that I'm your husband? What's wrong with a spanking? And you just said that we had sex. Now I want to do it again. If the little girl had asked for help directly, he would have helped her. But she thought she was smart and used him, which made him very unhappy. The delinquent girl took 2 steps back and cried, What are you doing? I don't know you. I'll call the police if you do this again. Chin Haodong said, Now you want to call the police? What did you do just now? The delinquent girl didn't feel any malice from him, so she felt much more at ease. She pouted and said, Why are you so stingy as a man? I just asked you to help me beat a few gangsters. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I've practiced, or I would have been crippled by these gangsters. The more Chin Haodong thought about it, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and slapped the delinquent girl's butt again. This time, it was even louder than the last slap. He took back his hand and said with a playful smile, It feels good. You spanked me again. The delinquent girl was so angry that her face was red. She had never been touched by anyone else in her life, but she was spanked twice by this guy tonight. But she couldn't do anything about it. She had sneaked out. This is a lesson for you. Don't treat others as fools in the future. Remember, you still owe me sex. After that, Chin Haodong ignored the delinquent girl and turned to walk in the direction of the hotel. After checking in at the hotel, he took a bath and had a good sleep. The next morning, he got up and prepared to have breakfast before going to the Shanghai Medical College to report. When he walked out of the hotel gate, the sun had already risen high, illuminating the morning of Shanghai. The location of the hotel was very prosperous, surrounded by shops. Chin Haodong originally wanted to find a breakfast shop and have a simple meal. But before he walked far, a melodious music came, which made him stop. This was not an ordinary pop song, nor was it played by modern piano, saxophone and other instruments. It was an ancient song from the zither, the most famous high mountains and flowing water in Huaxia. The sound of the zither was melodious. Chin Haodong slowly closed his eyes, and his whole body seemed to be in the green mountains and clear waters. It could bring people an immersive feeling. It had to be said that the player of this song had great attainments in music, which was far from what those pianists and musicians could compare with. Chin Haodong walked slowly in the direction of the sound and soon arrived in front of a tea house not far away. This tea house was completely decorated in the form of an ancient building. It looked very simple and unadorned. There was a huge plaque on it, with 4 big words written on it, Hemming Tea House. Next to the tea house stood a quaint stone tablet with the words Century-Old Tea House written on it. Below it was a large paragraph of text annotation, which recorded that this tea house had been built in the Qing dynasty for more than 100 years. The high mountains and flowing water just now had finished, and a new piece of ancient zither music floated out of the tea house. The sound of the zither was like gurgling water, which could wash away the dirt on people's hearts. What kind of person could play such beautiful music? With curiosity, Qin Haodong stepped into the Hemming tea house. Although it was still early and there was still some time before breakfast according to the habits of the people in Shanghai, it was already overcrowded. All the seats in the tea house were already full. Qin Haodong looked at the center of the tea house and saw a girl in ancient clothes sitting there playing a 7-string zither. The music was flowing from her fingers. When he first saw the girl, he was slightly stunned. It was not because she was beautiful. He had seen many beautiful women. The few women around him were not inferior to the person in front of him in terms of appearance. What amazed him was the girl's temperament. She was light and elegant, and her whole body was filled with a kind of classical beauty from the depths of her soul. Generally speaking, modern people would always feel a little artificial when they wore ancient clothes, but this girl was completely different. It was as if the clothes were tailor-made for her. She was like a saint who came out of the cultivation world. Because of this, Qin Haodong couldn't help but carefully look at the girl in front of him. Suddenly, his heart turned into a storm. At first glance, this girl looked like an ordinary person, but there was an extremely powerful force hidden in her body. If he didn't have the spirit, he wouldn't have been able to detect it. This kind of power seemed to be a girl's cultivation, but it had been sealed by a special method. She looked no different from an ordinary person. How deep was her cultivation that it could give him such a powerful feeling after being sealed? Qin Haodong's heart was full of curiosity, but he could only detect so much. Under the seal, he couldn't see what realm the girl's cultivation had reached. He looked at the 7-string zither in the girl's hand and was surprised to find that the zither was neither gold nor wood. It was surrounded by spiritual qi. It turned out to be a spiritual weapon. After this reincarnation, it was the first time he had seen a spiritual weapon except for the yin-yang mirror that he had accidentally obtained. It could be seen that this girl was definitely a martial artist. But since she was a martial artist, why did she seal her cultivation? Did she seal it? Or was it sealed by someone else? Just as he was attracted by the girl, a waiter came up to him and said, "Sir, do you want to have breakfast? There's an empty seat here." "Oh. Okay." Qin Haodong also knew that it was not good to stand here and stare at the girl. He followed the waiter and sat in a seat that had just been vacated. Otherwise, my brother would definitely sit in the seat closest to Shirhan. At this time, another song was over. Just as the fat man said, Shirhan was indeed a popular star here. There was immediately a burst of applause and cheers. In order to sit longer, some diners ordered more food, especially those who were close to Shirhan's seat. They were reluctant to leave. Qin Haodong said, "Is Shirhan an employee of this shop?" He was a little surprised. Shirhan's attainments in ancient music were extremely profound. He was afraid that even the famous ancient music masters in Huaxia could not compare with her. She also had a kind of elegance and classical beauty from her bones. Why did she come to the downtown to play? The fat man lowered his voice and said, "Shirhan is an employee here. I heard that she came from another place. It seems that it's her first time in a big city like Shanghai. She doesn't know much about anything. She was directly signed by the boss's wife for 3 years. Now she can't leave even if she wants to. Otherwise, she will have to pay a large sum of liquidated damages." Qin Haodong nodded secretly. Such a pure sound of the guqin did not come from the city. After hearing the news, he asked in surprise, "She is just playing the guqin here. Does she still need to sign a liquidated damages contract?" The fat man said, "You can't underestimate Miss Shirhan. Since she came, I heard that the turnover of the tea house has doubled. Now she is the cash cow of the Hemming tea house. The proprietress is very shrewd. How can she leave so easily?" While speaking, his eyes never left Shirhan's delicate face. "If I were the boss, I wouldn't let her go. A beautiful woman like her will feel refreshed even if I look at her a few times a day." Qin Haodong said, "Since she is helping the tea house to make money, her salary will not be small, right?" The fat man shook his head and said in a low voice, "It's not like that at all. The boss of this shop is very evil. He signed a 3-year contract with Shirhan in advance. Her salary is very low, and he doesn't give her a raise. Moreover, the boss of the tea house has an underworld background. Shirhan can't fight back. Otherwise, she will be very miserable. Qin Haodong was not surprised by this. An old shop that could be passed down for 100 years generally had to have power in both the underworld and the underworld. Otherwise, it would be disliked by the local gangsters and they would be beaten up a few times. Then, it would not be able to open again. At the same time, he also felt a little sorry for Shirhan. As soon as she entered this complicated society, she was trapped by the evil boss. He asked again, according to Shirhan's appearance and musical attainments, it's not difficult for her to enter the entertainment circle. Why did she choose to play here? The fat man shook his head and said, I don't know. Maybe it's a personal hobby, or maybe she was cheated by the boss. Moreover, the entertainment circle is very deep. It's difficult to get in without a way. Speaking of this, he sighed and said, with Shirhan's appearance and figure, as long as she waved her hand, countless rich men would throw money at her. She could live a carefree life, but she didn't do so. He seemed to feel sorry for Shirhan, but Qin Haodong knew that he could hear from the sound of the zither that this girl's heart was extremely pure. How could she let such worldly things affect her? While they were talking, breakfast was almost finished, and Shirhan also finished the last song. She stood up, bowed to many diners and said, Everyone, today's 10 songs have all been played. You are welcome to come again tomorrow. Her voice was as pleasant to the ear as her zither. After that, she picked up the zither and walked to the back hall of the tea house. Shirhan, don't go. Come and chat with me. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a big beard. His face was dirty. As he spoke, he made a caressing gesture at Shirhan's back. Although he only touched the air, this action seemed to make him feel very satisfied. Seeing him like this, there was another burst of dirty laughter around him. At this time, another thin man reached out to stop Shirhan and said with a sinister smile, Shirhan, I came here specially for you today. I spent more than 1,000 yuan here for a meal. How should you thank me? Qin Haodong couldn't help shaking his head secretly. He thought to himself, thank you for nothing. You just came here to harass me, and I can't get a penny of commission. I'm tired of you. Why should I thank you? Shirhan seemed to be used to this situation. She didn't pay attention to the thin man. She just took a slight step to the side and then continued to move forward. Although these diners frequently teased Shirhan, they all stopped. No one did anything too excessive. But at this moment, a young man suddenly stood up and reached out to grab Shirhan's arm. Shirhan, don't go. Chat with me. I'll give you 1,000 yuan for one sentence. What do you think? The young man was wearing famous brands from head to toe and a gold watch worth millions of yuan on his hand. There was an uncontrollable obscenity in his eyes. At first glance, it was obvious that he was a rich playboy who came out to have fun. The fat man said in Qin Haodong's ear, This is Huang Cailuan, the son of Huang Jianye, a real estate businessman in Shanghai. Everyone calls him Young Master Huang. He has so much money that he can kill people. Recently, he has come here every morning to support Shirhan. Only this young master can offer a price of 1,000 yuan for a single sentence. Qin Haodong glared at the fat man angrily. These people were a kind of blasphemy to Shirhan. He didn't understand why a fairy like her would come to this busy city to be contaminated with these secular things. Please behave yourself. Shirhan said and shook off Huang Cailuan's arm. Although her internal force was completely sealed, she still had the foundation of martial arts, so she was stronger than ordinary women. Seeing that Shirhan didn't give him face, Huang Cailuan couldn't help but change his expression. He reached out and slapped her on the butt. The slap was not heavy, but the sound was very loud, and the meaning was completely different. The tea house, which had been bustling with noise, suddenly quieted down. Huang Cailuan took back his right hand and sniffed it. Then he said with endless aftertaste, "It feels good and tastes better. I just don't know what it feels like to be pressed on the bed." After that, he was the first to laugh, and then the others also laughed. These people must have the same idea as Huang Cailuan. They wanted to experience how it felt. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. From the bottom of his heart, he didn't want to see these people being obscene. It was Shirhan. Seeing that these people were getting more and more outrageous, Shirhan's face instantly became cold, and her eyes were full of inexplicable anger. She raised her hand and slapped Huang Cailuan in the face, who was still laughing wildly. Pa! This slap was very powerful, and the crisp sound was even louder than before, echoing in the whole tea house. Huang Cailuan was laughing happily, but he never expected to be slapped in the face, which almost made his mouth crooked. Shirhan's face was still full of anger. Although she was indifferent and elegant, she had been molested by people one after another since she came to this tea house. Today, the anger in her heart was finally completely ignited. After Huang Cailuan was shocked, he was instantly furious. He was used to being domineering. When had he ever encountered such a thing? Vulture's face contorted. At the same time, the laughter in the hall stopped abruptly, and everyone was shocked by Shirhan's slap. None of them expected that this girl, who was usually very elegant and indifferent, would do such a rude thing. Moreover, this was a tea house, which was open to welcome guests. The customers were all gods, and this kind of behavior of beating gods had serious consequences. The most important thing was that she was not hitting anyone else, but the notorious young master, Huang Cailuan. Young Master Huang was a famous rich second generation. Usually, he was the one who made trouble, but today, he was slapped in the face in public. How could he swallow it? Sure enough, after the furious Huang Cailuan came to his senses, he kicked over the table and scolded with a ferocious look, "Bitch! Bitch, I gave you face by slapping your ass. How dare you hit me again? You're F***king courting death." Everyone became nervous, but Shirhan still stood where she was, looking at Huang Cailuan angrily. Chapter 449. Huang Cailuan continued to roar, "Bitch! Bitch, you're still not convinced, right? Today, I'll let you see what will happen to you if you offend me, young Master Huang." After that, he turned his head to the side of the hall and shouted, "Where's the owner of the tea house? Come out quickly. You must give me an explanation for today's matter." The noise here was too big, and the matter had alarmed the lobby manager. He rushed over in a hurry. Seeing the angry Huang Cailuan, he quickly flattered him. He said flatteringly, "Young Master Huang, what's wrong? Are you not satisfied with your meal? Are you F***king blind?" Huang Cailuan pointed to the slap mark on his face and roared at the lobby manager, "I was hit by the bitch who played the zither here. Today, you must give me an explanation." Hearing Huang Cailuan's accusation, the lobby manager immediately turned his head to look at Shirhan. The expression on his face immediately changed from servile to domineering. "Are you crazy? How dare you hit a guest? Apologize to young Master Huang." His own person was molested by a guest, and the first thing he did was to ask the person to apologize humbly. Many guests were extremely disdainful of the lobby manager's approach. Shirhan glared at the lobby manager angrily, then turned her head and left, completely ignoring his words. Huang Cailuan shouted, "Bitch! Bitch, where are you going? Stop right there." The lobby manager flashed in front of her and shouted, "Jia Shirhan, are you deaf? I told you to apologize to young Master Huang." Only then did Qin Haodong know that the girl's full name was Jia Shirhan. As soon as the lobby manager finished shouting, he heard a slap and a bright red slap mark appeared on his face. Jia Shirhan's face was red. Obviously, she was extremely angry. She slapped the lobby manager aside and then stepped forward. Seeing this scene, the guests next to them began to clap and cheer. Right at this moment, a sharp voice sounded out. "Stop right there. If you dare to take another step forward, I'll break your legs and sell you to the bathing center." Qin Haodong looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman walking over. The woman was extraordinarily fat. Her waistline was definitely not inferior to her height. When she walked, she looked like a rolling meatball. Such a person liked to wear heavy makeup. His greasy face was covered in all kinds of makeup. When he walked, not only did the fat on his body jiggle, the makeup on his face kept falling off. It was disgusting to look at. The meatball was the lady boss of this tea house, Zhu Dongmei. Everyone called her Big Fat Pig in private. Zhu Dongmei came in front of Jia Shihan and shouted fiercely, "If you pretend to be noble in front of me again, I will sell you to the bathing center as a whore." Son. When Huang Xiluan heard her words, he smiled ferociously and said, "That's great. At that time, I will bring people there every day. Whoring you, let's see if you can still pretend in front of me." His pair of lustful eyes stared at Jia Shihan's curvaceous figure, as if he had already seen her being pressed under his body. Jia Shihan didn't say anything. She just stood there with her eyes blazing. "Bitch. Son, are you deaf? Quickly kneel down and apologize to young Master Huang." Zhu Dongmei was about to go mad with anger. Usually, she was sharp and mean. She treated the staff of the tea house extremely fiercely. She never expected that there would be a situation where the staff beat the guests today. If this news got out, how would her tea house open in the future? Who would send money to the Hemming tea house? Jia Shihan glanced at Zhu Dongmei and still didn't speak. It seemed that there were no words to express her feelings at this time. Zhu Dongmei roared again, "Jia Shihan, let me tell you, you signed a 3-year contract. It is clearly written in our contract that you must put the image of the tea house first. You must not affect the business of the tea house. Otherwise, you will have to compensate 10 times the sum of your salary for 3 years. Do you want to violate the rules now? This is too evil." There is actually such a tyrannical clause in the contract. The guests around them began to whisper. Jia Shihan said angrily, "I don't understand your contract at all. You lied to me to sign it." Zhu Dongmei was immediately like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She screamed, "Bullsh*t. Your name is written in black and white. How can it be that I lied to you? Proprietress, your husband, Brother Zhu, and I are friends. Because of this, I usually support the business of the Hemming tea house. Today, I was beaten by a woman here. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Huang Xiluan added fuel to the fire for Zhu Dongmei. Zhu Dongmei shook her fat body, stared at Jia Shihan, and shouted, "Hurry up and apologize to young Master Huang. Otherwise, I will make it impossible for you to survive in the entire Shanghai." What a big tone. Qin Haodong smiled disdainfully. "Little brother, don't talk nonsense. This tea house has an underworld background." The fat man moved his chair to Qin Haodong's side and whispered in his ear, "The owner of the tea house, Ho Qingzhu, is friends with several bosses in the underworld of Shanghai, so the proprietress is indeed not bragging. As long as she says a word, she will definitely make Shihan have no place to stay in the whole Shanghai." An extremely complicated expression flashed in Jia Shihan's beautiful big eyes. There were grievances, anger, unwillingness, and sadness. Seeing her expression, many of the guests present were moved. However, sympathy was sympathy. It was impossible for them to stand up and speak for Jia Shihan. Jia Shihan didn't expect these people to help. She said angrily to Zhu Dongmei, "Don't go too far. Bitch, the more you talk, the more excited you are, right?" Zhu Dongmei pointed at Jia Shihan and shouted, "I'll tell you for the last time. Hurry up and apologize to young Master Huang. If you wait for my husband to come back, it will be too late for you to regret it. Do you think you're great just because you pretend to be a saint all day? Believe it or not, my husband will strip you naked and throw you on the street." Huang Xiluan shouted, "Proprietress, if that's the case, I won't pursue today's matter. I want to see how she will pretend to me when she loses her face. From today on, I have nothing to do with the Hemming tea house." After Jia Shihan finished speaking, she held her 7-string zither and walked out of the tea house. Stop right there. Did the proprietress let you go? The lobby manager flashed in front of Jia Shirhan. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he was hit in the stomach by the zither. He screamed like a pig being slaughtered. From her movements, Qin Haodong was more certain of his inference. Jia Shirhan must have been a martial artist before, and her cultivation was very high. This 7-string zither was her weapon. However, now that she had lost her internal force, she couldn't even exert 1/10,000th of her previous ability. A sneer appeared at the corner of Huang Cailuan's mouth. He said to Zhu Dongmei, "Proprietress, it seems that I have to do it myself today." After saying that, he took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. As soon as the phone was hung up, several strong bodyguards immediately rushed in from outside. After those people entered the door, they shouted fiercely, "Who dares to provoke our young master Huang? Are you tired of living?" Seeing this scene, everyone broke into a cold sweat for Jia Shirhan. No matter what, she was just a woman. It was impossible for her to be a match for these bodyguards. It seemed that today's disaster was inevitable. The fat man shook his head next to Qin Haodong and whispered, "This girl is really stubborn. Is it so difficult to apologize?" However, he also knew that the key issue was not an apology. Even if Jia Shirhan bowed her head, she would not be able to escape Huang Cailuan's clutches in the end. Looking at the few bodyguards in front of her, Jia Shirhan's eyes flashed with despair. At the same time, there was a kind of extreme unwillingness. She used to be an ant that she could kill with a raise of her finger, but now she was forced into a desperate situation. At this moment, she suddenly found that there was one more person next to her. It was a very handsome young man. Qin Haodong smiled slightly, "I'm here. It's okay." These 6 short words suddenly made Jia Shirhan's heart feel a lot more at ease. At the same time, she felt a lot warmer. In the end, someone was willing to stand up and help her. Only then did the fat man realize that the young man who had been sitting next to him had actually stood up to defend the injustice. He was a little worried for Qin Haodong, but in the end, he held back and didn't say anything. He just murmured, "You want to die. You can't blame others." Now it was like this. In the eyes of many people, acting bravely for a just cause had become the second choice. In their opinion, being wise to protect oneself was the best way. Zhu Dongmei glanced at Qin Haodong and said angrily, "Who are you? You can eat here, but don't meddle in other people's business. If you're done eating, leave quickly." Qin Haodong smiled faintly and said calmly, "I can't stand to see people bully others, let alone women." Huang Cailuan didn't expect that someone would jump out and meddle in his business. If he didn't get his face back today, he really wouldn't be able to survive in Shanghai in the future. Thinking of this, the anger in his heart became more and more intense. He shouted to his bodyguards, "Cripple this gigolo and take that bitch away. I must have sex with her today." Hearing their master's order, the bodyguards immediately rushed towards Qin Haodong and Jia Shirhan aggressively. Qin Haodong reached out and pulled Jia Shirhan behind him. At this time, the fist of the first bodyguard had already arrived in front of him. He reached out and grabbed the bodyguard's wrist. Then, he raised his hand and cut his neck with a palm knife. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he was very familiar with the human body. Whether it was the strength or the scale, they had reached the pinnacle of perfection. Just like that, the bodyguard softly fell to the ground and fainted. Then, Qin Haodong's movements didn't stop. He raised his leg and kicked the chest of the second bodyguard. The bodyguard shot out like a cannonball. He first knocked over a table, and then hit Zhu Dongmei's body hard. The force was so great that Zhu Dongmei couldn't maintain her balance at all. She screamed and rolled on the ground like a meatball. She crashed into several tables, causing chopsticks, dishes, and all kinds of ingredients to fall all over her body. The remaining 2 bodyguards, Qin Haodong, were not polite. He took all of them and kicked them to the ground in a few seconds. Seeing Qin Haodong's skills, a strange look flashed in Jia Shirhan's eyes. After dealing with these bodyguards, he was confused. Huang Xiluan waved his hand and said, "Come here." He didn't expect the gigolo in front of him to be a master. Seeing that all the bodyguards had been knocked down, Huang Xiluan immediately lost his confidence. He shouted fiercely, "Do you King know who I am? How dare you steal my woman here? Do you want to die?" As he spoke, he found that Qin Haodong was walking towards him. He immediately said nervously, "You. What are you going to do? I'm warning you, this is Shanghai. If you offend me, you won't be able to survive." "Stupid. You really talk a lot of nonsense." As Qin Haodong spoke, he raised his hand and slapped him in the face. This slap was much stronger than Jia Shihan's. It directly made Huang Xiluan spin a few times on the ground like a spinning top. Half of his face immediately swelled up, and his teeth fell to the ground. Chapter 450. King dare to hit me, Huang Xiluan was about to go mad with anger. He had never been hit by anyone in his life, but today, he had been hit twice in a row. However, before he could finish shouting, Qin Haodong slapped him on the other cheek again. He spun like a top again. This time, he was beaten until he couldn't tell the direction. When he came back to his senses and saw Qin Haodong's handsome face again, he was no longer as arrogant as before. Qin Haodong grabbed his collar and said in a cold voice, "You didn't eat properly," and harassed the girl. "Hurry up and apologize." Hearing the word apologize, Jia Shihan's eyes were a little wet. Since entering this society, she had seen a lot of hypocrisy in the world. There were many people who coveted her beauty, but this was the first time that someone really wanted to help her. Although Huang Xiluan was shocked by Qin Haodong's momentum, he was also a well-known figure in Shanghai. How could he lower his head and apologize to a woman? He said in a low voice, "Boy, let's forget about today's matter. Don't go too far, or you will definitely pay the price." In his opinion, this was already giving Qin Haodong a lot of face. After all, he was the young master of the Huang family. But after he finished speaking, he saw Qin Haodong smile coldly. "Going too far? You people joined forces to bully a foreign girl, and you still have the nerve to say that others are going too far. Now, I will let you see what the price is." As he spoke, he stepped forward and grabbed Huang Xiluan's right hand. "Just now, you used this hand to slap her butt. So what? She's just a bitch. I touched her but to give her face." Huang Xiluan obviously didn't realize the seriousness of the problem, and he still unscrupulously showed off his superiority. Qin Haodong's wrist shook slightly, and Huang Xiluan was thrown up like a sack and slammed to the ground. The fall was so heavy that he almost dropped the breakfast he had just eaten. However, before he could get up, he suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain in his right hand. "What are you doing? Let go of me, my dad is." Halfway through his words, he suddenly let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered, because Qin Haodong's foot had mercilessly stepped on his palm, followed by a bone-cracking sound. Amidst the cracking sounds of bones, Huang Xiluan almost fainted from the pain. He felt that his hand had been completely crushed, and he was afraid that he would never be able to recover in this lifetime. The people in the restaurant were scared silly. They didn't expect that this seemingly gentle and quiet young man would be so ruthless. Huang Xiluan was the young master of the Huang family. He had harmed countless girls before, but today, he lost one of his hands just because he patted his butt. Today is a lesson for you. Remember, don't do whatever you want just because you have some money. After Qin Haodong finished speaking, he withdrew his foot. At this time, Huang Xiluan's entire palm was red and swollen. It was obviously a comminuted fracture. "My hand, you actually crippled my hand." Huang Xiluan looked at his palm. Apart from the intense pain, he could not feel anything else. He could not even bend his fingers. "Bastard, you actually dared to cripple my hand. I will kill you." The stimulation of becoming a cripple made him lose his mind for a moment, and he roared at Qin Haodong. But before he could finish shouting, a huge foot abruptly stopped on his face. Blood spurted from his nostrils, and his whole body fell backward. At this time, Zhu Dongmei climbed up from the ground in embarrassment. At this time, her big meatball elephant looked even more comical. The soup that spilled from the table had washed the thick makeup on her face into ravines, and there was a small steamed bun on top of her head. Seeing the scene in front of her, she felt that she was going to go crazy. The dignified century-old Hemming tea house, the dignified background of both the underworld and the underworld, had been smashed like this. The most important thing was that Huang Xiluan's palm had been crippled. It should be known that he was the only son of Huang Jianye, a land developer. Something had happened in her shop, and the angry Huang Jianye would definitely settle accounts with her. But this woman was still very scheming. She knew that this was not the time to fight recklessly. Hiding behind a table, she secretly took out her mobile phone and began to call her husband. As soon as she hung up the phone, the table in front of her was kicked away. Then Qin Haodong grabbed her hair and dragged her straight in front of Jia Shihan. Zhu Dongmei was a real shrew. When had she ever been bullied like this? Today, she was dragged by her hair, which made her go crazy. Getting up from the ground, her big oily face had become distorted under extreme anger. Coupled with the traces of being washed by the soup, she looked like a ghost. "Kid, do you know where this is? This is the Hemming tea house. You even dare to smash my place. I will find someone to castrate you later. As for that bitch, I will find 100 men to take turns with her." In her extreme anger, all kinds of malicious words came out of her stinky mouth. Just as she was enjoying herself, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen, and then her whole body flew out like a ball. "Hit me? King dare to hit me?" Zhu Dongmei got up from the ground and was about to fight with Qin Haodong. However, being rude and unreasonable did not represent strength. Qin Haodong grabbed her hair and threw her against the wall next to him like a broken sack. She weighed more than 100 kilograms, and the impact made the entire tea house tremble. She hit the wall hard, fell to the ground, and fell heavily again. Zhu Dongmei felt that her whole bones were about to fall apart. At this time, she realized what kind of ruthless character she was facing and immediately closed her mouth. Qin Haodong glanced at her and said disdainfully, "Generally speaking, I don't hit women, but a person like you whose heart is so black can't be considered a woman at all." Zhu Dongmei did not speak, but her eyes flashed with an uncontrollable fierceness. She was waiting for her husband, Ho Qingzhu, to come over. At that time, she must tear the man in front of her into pieces. At this time, Jia Shihan, who had been silent, spoke, "Little brother, thank you for your help. You should leave quickly. I will take responsibility for this matter myself." She had been here for 3 months and was very clear about the background of the Hemming tea house. When the boss came back, there would definitely be a storm. She did not want this kind-hearted young man to be implicated because of her. "I don't have the habit of letting women take responsibility." Qin Haodong smiled at Jia Shihan and said, "Moreover, I have always done things well from the beginning to the end. I don't have the habit of running away halfway." He looked back at Zhu Dongmei and said, "I heard that you tricked the little girl into signing a 3-year contract. Where is the contract? Take it out quickly." Seeing that Qin Haodong wanted a contract for her, Jia Shihan's lips moved a little, but in the end, she did not speak. This contract was like a rope around her neck, suffocating her. It would be best if she could get it back. "Don't even think about it. That was the contract I signed with her. Why should I give it to you?" Since Jia Shihan came to the Hemming tea house, the turnover here had risen sharply and more than doubled. She did not want to let go of this cash cow. "You don't want to give it to me?" Qin Haodong smiled slightly. He took a step forward and stepped on Zhu Dongmei's palm with his right foot. "I will count to 3. If you don't hand over the contract, you will end up like Huang Xiluan. 3. 2. After counting to 2, Zhu Dongmei was so scared that her whole body trembled. Huang Xiluan's miserable appearance was right next to her. She did not think that this young man was joking. She quickly shouted, "Don't step on it. Don't step on it. I will give it to you." Qin Haodong withdrew his foot and said, "It would have been better if you had done this earlier." Zhu Dongmei quickly withdrew her hands and placed them under her fat buttocks, as if she would be much safer this way. She looked at Qin Haodong in horror and said, "The contract is in my husband's hands. He will come later. As long as he comes, I will give it to you immediately." Qin Haodong glanced at her and shouted, "It seems that you still haven't given up. Are you counting on your husband to avenge you?" Zhu Dongmei's careful thoughts were caught by the young man in front of her. She quickly lowered her head, for fear that Qin Haodong would see her hateful eyes. "No, that contract is really in my husband's hands. Since you want to wait, then wait." Qin Haodong did not care and said, "Since you want to wait, it's boring to stay. You kneel down and apologize to this girl now. You can get up when your husband comes." "What? You want me to kneel down to her? That's impossible." Although Zhu Dongmei often asked her employees to kneel down and punish them, she never thought that there would be a day when she would kneel down to others. "You don't agree, right? Then I promise that you will never have a chance to kneel down with your legs in the future." Qin Haodong's voice was very calm and even very gentle. However, when Zhu Dongmei heard it, she shuddered. She hesitated for a moment and thought of the ruthless means of the young man in front of her. In the end, between her face and her legs, she still chose her legs. As a result, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Zhu Dongmei, who had always been arrogant and domineering, actually knelt down in front of Jia Shihan. "I'm sorry." These 3 words were extremely difficult to say. They were full of anger and humiliation. Zhu Dongmei was already extremely angry at this time. She was looking forward to Ho Qingzhu's early return, and then inflict the humiliation she had suffered on the young couple 100 times. People like her always considered problems from their own standpoint and never reflected on their own mistakes. Qin Haodong said with dissatisfaction, "Your voice is too low. Is this the attitude of admitting your mistake?" "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Zhu Dongmei shouted loudly. "That's more like it." Qin Haodong turned his head and said to Huang Cailuan, "Young Master Huang, it's your turn. Kneel down and apologize." At this time, Huang Cailuan was already sweating from the pain. He looked at Qin Haodong with deep hatred in his eyes. "What? Are you not willing?" While speaking, Qin Haodong's eyes saw his remaining left hand again. Huang Cailuan was so scared that his whole body trembled. He didn't want to lose his left hand again. He could only kneel in front of Jia Shihan with Zhu Dongmei. Seeing the 2 people who bullied her kneel in front of her and apologize, Jia Shihan's eyes were filled with tears. She was full of gratitude to the young man in front of her. If it weren't for this person's righteous help, her fate could be imagined. She would definitely be humiliated to death by Huang Cailuan. This time, she didn't let Qin Haodong go first. She said, "Brother, let me play a song for you." "Okay, I'm all ears." As Qin Haodong spoke, he pulled a chair and sat down. Jia Shihan also found a clean table. She put the 7-string guqin on the table and began to play. The surrounding diners were stunned. This young couple was really crazy. After beating Zhu Dongmei and Huang Cailuan like this, they didn't run away quickly. They actually played a song here. Did they really think that the Hemming tea house was their own back garden? Thinking of the serious consequences that would follow, some bold people stayed here to watch the fun, while the timid ones had quietly slipped away. Chapter 451. No matter what other people thought, Jia Shihan played attentively. Qin Haodong listened leisurely, his fingers tapping on the table from time to time. Soon, the song ended. At this time, there was a harsh sound of brakes outside the door. Then, more than a dozen people rushed into the tea house. Among the 3 people walking in the front, one was short and thin. He had no hair on his bald head. He had a red nose and a shoehorn face. He was the image of bald Chang. The two people next to him were tall and fat. They were 1.9 meters tall and weighed more than 100 kilograms. They were Bear brothers and Bear too. Seeing these three people, the diners who were still in the restaurant were silent. The thin man was Ho Qingzhu, the owner of the Hemming Tea House. The other two were Xiong Taijun, the boss of the Shanghai biker gang, and Yang Jinlong, the president of the Sanjiang Society. These three people were followed by more than a dozen people. These people were all bare-chested, unscrupulously revealing all kinds of tattoos on their bodies. They held machetes in their hands, looking fierce and menacing. Others were afraid, but Qin Haodong almost laughed when he saw these three people. The combination of Bald Chang, Bear brothers, and Bear 2 was really weird. After entering the door, Ho Qingzhu was shocked when he saw Zhu Dongmei kneeling on the ground. This woman was usually extremely shrewish. Even he was somewhat afraid of her. He didn't expect her to kneel on the ground and not move today. Who had such great power? Wife, what's wrong with you? Husband, you're back. Zhu Dongmei no longer cared about Qin Haodong. She stood up and rushed over. However, she was too heavy. She was so emotional that she almost threw the thin Ho Qingzhu to the ground. Huang Xiluan also got up from the ground. His left hand was comminuted. It was so painful that he cried. He didn't dare to go to the hospital just now. When he saw Yang Jinlong, it was as if he had seen his savior. He immediately went over and said, "Uncle Yang, it's that little white face who hurt me. You must help me kill him. I'm going to the hospital now." After that, he ran out of the tea house without looking back, accompanied by several bodyguards. His family was very familiar with Yang Jinlong. They knew the ruthlessness of the Sanjiang gang's boss, so in his opinion, Qin Haodong was bound to die. Qin Haodong didn't care about a nobody like him, so he just ran away. At this time, Ho Qingzhu said to Zhu Dongmei, "Honey, what's going on?" Zhu Dongmei turned around, pointed at Qin Haodong and Jia Shihan, and said, "Husband, it's that little bitch. Not only did she hit young Master Huang, but she also seduced a wild man. He smashed our tea house and beat me like this. He even forced me to kneel and apologize to that little bitch." Speaking up to this point, she felt so humiliated that she actually started to cry. She was used to being domineering all these years. When had she ever suffered such grievances? Ho Qingzhu had just received a call saying that someone was causing trouble at his tea house. He was told to bring people back quickly. Only then did he rush back to the tea house with Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun. However, he did not expect the matter to be so serious. After listening to Zhu Dongmei, Ho Qingzhu looked at Jia Shihan viciously. *TCH, don't you know the consequences of doing this? Over the past 3 months, he didn't know how much he had secretly drooled while looking at Jia Shihan. However, Zhu Dongmei was keeping a close eye on him, so he hadn't found a chance to make a move. But thinking about it was just thinking about it. Now that the other party had found someone to beat his wife like this and even smashed his tea house, this hatred must be avenged. Otherwise, the tea house would not be able to do business in the future. It would become a joke in the entire Shanghai. Yang Jinlong took 2 steps forward and slapped the table next to him. He shouted, "I don't care who you are. You beat my sister-in-law to such a state in my territory. That's courting death. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish today." Qin Haodong was fearless. He sneered and said, "Robbers are reasonable. I'm telling you, hurry up and hand over Shihan's contract. Otherwise, I will tear down your tea house today." What a joke. Although Ho Qingzhu looked very funny, he was very imposing at this time. Our Hemming Tea House is a century-old shop. It has been passed down since the Qing dynasty. It has never been demolished. How dare you say that you want to demolish my tea house? What a big tone. A century-old shop made you look like this. I really feel ashamed for your ancestors. Qin Haodong said in a cold voice, "Shihan has helped your tea house make so much money. Not only do you not give her the treatment she deserves, but you also exploit her with a deceitful contract. Now hand over the contract immediately and apologize. Otherwise, your century-old shop will come to an end. Brother Ho, why are you talking nonsense with them? Just cripple this toy boy. The one who spoke was Xiong Taijun of the biker gang. He had always been rude. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and his men immediately rushed towards Qin Haodong with machetes. Zhu Dongmei shouted fiercely, "First, cut off the tendons of his hands and feet. I will play with him to death later." At this time, she had been blinded by hatred. Her big distorted face was even more terrible than a demon. But just as she finished shouting, a black shadow rushed over and hit her again, causing her to roll on the ground like a meatball. Although each of these thugs was holding a machete in their hands, they were just ordinary people. How could they be Qin Haodong's opponents? Before Ho Qingzhu and the others could react, these dozen or so people had all been put down on the ground, and miserable howls resounded in the air. Yang Jinlong and the other two had never expected it to be like this. Qin Haodong's strength was far beyond their expectations. They had been in the underworld for so many years, but they had never seen such a good person. Xiong Taijun was also tough. He stepped forward and said, "Boy, I know you have some skills, but so what? You can beat 10 people, but can you beat 100 people? We have hundreds of brothers in the biker gang. If I call them over, they can also kill you." Yang Jinlong also said, "Yes, the brothers of our Sanjiang society are not weak. I advise you to kowtow to my brother and admit your mistake. Otherwise, I guarantee that you won't be able to survive in Shanghai." Qin Haodong burst into laughter and said, "I've never seen someone so tough after losing. I like to solve the trouble once and for all. Since you're not convinced, then call everyone here." "Boy, this is what you said. If you have the guts, don't run here. Wait for me." After Yang Jinlong said that, he immediately took out his mobile phone and made a call. "Hemming Tea House, call all the people over. Come here and kill people for me." Xiong Taijun did not show weakness and also began to call his men. Qin Haodong smiled and also took out his mobile phone. "Since you have all called people, I will also call some people over. Let's see whose people are more powerful." At this time, the onlookers suddenly realized why this young man was so tough. Not only was his skill frighteningly good, but he also had power in Shanghai. It seemed that there would be a good show to watch today. Ho Qingzhu shouted, "Call people if you have the guts. I don't believe that there is anyone in Shanghai who can suppress the biker gang and the Sanjiang society." Qin Haodong smiled and ignored him. He directly dialed Ma Wenjua's number. He had two purposes. First, he wanted to help Jia Shihan completely solve the trouble. Otherwise, it would not matter to him, but these people would definitely go to trouble her again. Second, Ma Wenjua and the others had been in Shanghai for almost 2 months. He also wanted to see how his brother had managed the daddy security company. "Dongzi, why did you think of calling me today? Do you miss me? If you miss me, then come and see me." As soon as the phone was connected, Ma Wenjua began to talk incessantly. Qin Haodong interrupted him and said, "Don't talk nonsense. I have already arrived in Shanghai. I am now at the Hemming Tea House. I am being blocked here with a knife." "What? Are you kidding?" Ma Wenjua didn't quite believe it. "I don't have time to joke with you." Qin Haodong said, "Hemming Tea House, come quickly. They want to compete with me to see who is more powerful. Damn it. There is actually someone in Shanghai who dares to talk to my brother like this. Hemming Tea House, right? Wait for me. I will bring people over now." After Ma Wenjua finished speaking, he immediately hung up the phone. "What? Are you done with the phone call?" Ho Qingzhu looked at Qin Haodong with a sarcastic face. In his opinion, this pretty boy was bluffing. It was obvious that he had a foreign accent, yet he still dared to call people in Shanghai. Although his skills were good, when a large number of people came, he would still have to lie on the ground and pretend to be a grandson. In Shanghai, no one could challenge the biker gang and the Sanjiang society. At this time, there was a roar of motors outside the door. One motorcycle after another came to the door of the Hemming tea house. Punks with machetes and steel pipes jumped out of the cars. These were all people from the biker gang. They rushed into the Hemming tea house like a swarm of bees. Immediately after, there were jeeps driving over one after another. Nearly 100 punks with colorful hair jumped out of the jeeps. These were all people from Yang Jinlong's Sanjiang society. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Hemming tea house had been surrounded by 100 or 200 punks. These people were all holding weapons in their hands. They looked fierce. The onlookers were so scared that they fled in all directions. Xiong Taijun came to Qin Haodong and said proudly, "Kid, did you see that? These are all my brothers. Are you afraid now? I see that you are a character. As long as you hand over that chick and kneel down to apologize to my brothers, then we will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I want these brothers to chop you into minced meat." Qin Haodong glanced at the punks around him and turned back to Jia Shihan with a smile. "Are you afraid?" Jia Shihan shook her head. "There is nothing to be afraid of. At most, I will die. If you die, I will be buried with you." This little girl was still so calm at this time. It was rare. Qin Haodong smiled and said, "What do you call this? Is it a life and death commitment?" "This. I am just thanking you. Don't think too much about it." Jia Shihan obviously had never made such a joke with anyone. Her cheeks were flushed, and she looked particularly attractive. Qin Haodong smiled. This little girl was too naive. She couldn't even tell that she was joking. No wonder she was tricked by Zhu Dongmei into signing a 3-year contract. He said, "Don't worry. No one will die. Our people will be here soon." Ho Qingzhu sneered and said, "Your people haven't made a move until now. I'm afraid they have already been scared away when they heard the names of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society." As soon as he finished speaking, a van came from a distance. It was as fast as the wind and lightning. Accompanied by a harsh breaking sound, it stopped in front of the Hemming tea house. "Is there really someone here?" Ho Qingzhu frowned slightly. In a place like Shanghai, was there really someone who was not afraid of the biker gang in the Sanjiang society? However, when he saw that there was only one van, his eyebrows relaxed again. Even if the van was full of people, it could not be compared with the 100 or 200 people of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society. Yang Jinlong's face also showed a touch of disdain. "Since someone is here, let's let him have a good look at the power of our Sanjiang society." Xiong Taijun also shouted arrogantly, "They know that the biker gang is here, and they still dare to come. I want to see who has such courage." Chapter 452. The door of the van opened, and a person jumped down from it. Then, there was no more movement. Seeing this scene, Ho Qingzhu suddenly laughed. He laughed very happily, and his tears were about to flow down. One person had made such a big fuss, but the other party only came by one person. Could it be a delivery man? Funny. It was so funny. But after laughing for a while, he found that he was the only one laughing. Not only did Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun not laugh, but even his thugs did not laugh. They were all looking at that person nervously. Just as he was trying to figure out what was going on, 10 more vans drove over. These doors opened, and they were not empty. Tall and straight figures jumped down one after another. These people who rushed out were all wearing the same uniform, black t-shirts with 2 big words printed on their chests. It was "Daddy." After these people got out of the car, they quickly stood in 2 rows. Although the word "Daddy" on their chests looked a little funny, their bodies exuded a soul-stirring aura, which made people not dare to look down on them. Were these all brought by the gigolo? Ho Qingzhu had already felt the strength of these people. He turned his head to look at Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun. After all, these two people were the source of his confidence. But at this time, he noticed that the two leaders of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society were livid at this time. Their bodies were slightly trembling, and their eyes were full of fear. Behind them, even the hundreds of members of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society showed a look of fear and retreated one after another. Two of them couldn't even hold the sabers in their hands and fell to the ground with a harsh clang. What the hell was going on? What made the biker gang and the Sanjiang society so afraid? Before Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei could figure it out, Ma Wenjue had already rushed into the Hemming tea house with 100 elites from the Daddy Security Company. Seeing this situation, the people from the biker gang and the Sanjiang society did not dare to stop them at all. On the contrary, they automatically made way for the people from the Daddy Security Company to go straight in. They went straight to the front of Qin Haodong and the others. "Boss, you are here." After seeing Ma Wenjue, Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun immediately greeted him with flattering faces. Their posture was so low that their hands were in their crotches. Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? They were very clear about the status of these two people in the underworld. Who else could make them lower their arrogant heads? Ma Wenjue ignored Xiong Taijun and Yang Jinlong. He quickly came to Qin Haodong and said, "Boss, what's going on?" In private, he and Qin Haodong were brothers, so he always called him Dongzi. But in front of the staff, he still called Qin Haodong boss. Qin Haodong didn't answer his question. He patted Ma Wenjue on the shoulder and said, "You seem to be doing well." Ma Wenjue said proudly, "Of course, don't you see whose brother we are?" Qin Haodong glanced at Xiong Taijun and Yang Jinlong, who were smiling, and said to Ma Wenjue, "Did they call you boss?" "That's right, I'm their big brother now." Ma Wenjue turned around and said to the two of them, "This is my boss. Hurry up and greet him." Xiong Taijun and Yang Jinlong had long lost their arrogance. They immediately bowed and said, "Hello, boss." With this greeting, Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei were so scared that their legs went soft and they almost fell to the ground. Who were Xiong Taijun and Yang Jinlong? When did they become someone else's underling? The most important thing was that the young man they had just offended was their boss's boss. It seemed that they would be in big trouble today. Qin Haodong said, "What the hell is going on? When did you become their boss?" Ma Wenjue said proudly, "After I brought people to Shanghai, I thought about how to quickly make our Daddy Security Company famous. Later, I came up with an idea. As long as we clean up the gangs in Shanghai, everyone will naturally know about our company. So I took people to sweep the gangs in Shanghai one by one. Not only the biker gang and the Sanjiang society, but also many others. Now they all recognize me as their boss." Only then did Qin Haodong understand why the gangsters of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society were so afraid when they saw the people of the Daddy Security Company. It turned out that they had been beaten up. However, this was normal. The people of the Daddy Security Company were all warriors. Half of them had even entered the covert power realm. Cleaning up these gangsters was as easy as eating and drinking. It had to be said that although this method was simple and crude, it was very effective. Not only did it quickly gain a foothold in Shanghai, but it also quickly made a name for the Daddy Security Company. What the two of them didn't know was that after more than a month of fierce suppression, Ma Wenjue had completely conquered the underworld of Shanghai. The bosses of all the gangs called him King Ma in private. When they talked about him, their faces changed. This was also the reason why Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun were so afraid. Ma Wenjue said, "Boss, what the hell is going on today? How did these bastards provoke you? Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Jia Shihan." Qin Haodong told him what had just happened. F***CK. How dare you hit my brother? You don't want to live. Ma Wenjue scolded and then whispered in Qin Haodong's ear, "You don't like her, do you? That's why you played the hero to save the beauty." Qin Haodong glared at him and said, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm just seeing injustice. The reason why he stood up to help Jia Shirhan was that, firstly, he really had a tender heart for the fairer sex. Secondly, he was full of curiosity about this girl. He wanted to find out what secrets Jia Shirhan had and what the powerful seal was about. Don't worry. I will keep it a secret for you. I won't tell Wushuang and the others. Ma Wenjue smiled and then said, since you're in Shanghai, you don't have to do it yourself today. I'll solve it for you. After that, he turned around and scolded Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun with a murderous look. You've eaten a leopard's courage. You even dare to provoke my boss? Seeing that Zhao Wenjue was angry, the two of them trembled with fear. A month ago, they had just been beaten like dogs by Ma Wenjue. They had been lying in the hospital for half a month. They had just been discharged from the hospital, so they didn't want to be beaten again. Being beaten was a small matter. As the saying goes, whoever has the bigger fist is the best. They knew very well how terrible King Ma was. He could destroy their biker gang and the Sanjiang society with just a raise of his hand. He could support another boss in minutes. They were now full of regret. If they had known about the relationship between this young man and Ma Wenjue, they would not have come to this muddy water even if they were beaten to death. However, now that things had happened, they could only try their best to find a way to remedy it. Otherwise, their two gangs might no longer exist. The two men's knees went soft and they fell to their knees with a plop. They begged with a bitter face, "Boss, please spare us. We didn't know that this was your boss. If we had known, we wouldn't have dared to do it even if we had 10,000 guts." Xiong Taijun said with fear, "Boss, we know we were wrong. Compensation, apology, anything is fine." The guests who were watching from afar found it funny. Just a moment ago, they were the majestic leaders of the two gangs. In the blink of an eye, they had become obedient grandsons. At the same time, they were also full of awe and curiosity about Qin Haodong. They didn't know where this young man came from and how he had become the boss of the biker gang and the Sanjiang society. Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei, who were on the side, were so scared that their faces turned pale when they saw this situation. The reason why they dared to be so domineering in the Hemming tea house was because they relied on their relationship with the biker gang and the Sanjiang society. Now, even Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun have become like grandsons. Their fate can be imagined. Jia Shirhan was also full of curiosity about Qin Haodong's identity. She looked over in surprise. Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "These are all my friends. Let him solve the trouble. No one can bully you in the future." Jia Shirhan felt warmth in her heart. This was the first time she had found this feeling since she left the sect. Ma Wenjue continued, "Mobilizing a group of people to attack my boss is courting death. I'll give you a chance. Punish yourself." Yang Jinlong and Xiong Tiejuan's hearts sank. They knew that today's matter would definitely not end well. Although Ma Wenjue looked harmless, they were very clear about his ruthless means. During this period of time, he had destroyed no less than 10 underworld gangs. Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun looked at each other and then knelt down in front of Qin Haodong. "Big boss, we were wrong. We were blind. Please be magnanimous and let us go this time." After saying that, they raised their hands together and slapped their own mouths. Although they were slapping themselves, they didn't dare to show any mercy. After more than a dozen slaps, their cheeks were swollen, and blood flowed down the corners of their mouths. After a while, he saw Qin Haodong nod slightly. Ma Wenjue whispered, "It's done." These two simple words were like music to Yang Jinlong and Xing Tiejuan's ears. If they continued to fight, they were afraid that their brains would be smashed into paste. Now, they were dizzy and couldn't tell north, south, east, and west. Ma Wenjue said again, "Why did you besiege my boss? Are you out of your mind?" Yang Jinlong said, "This is a misunderstanding. I was also deceived. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to attack the boss." For them, the underworld gang, it had always been better to let others die than to let others die. Now, they could only put all the blame on Ho Qingzhu. Ma Wenjue said, "Who lied to you? Where is he?" Ho Qingzhu and his wife, who were hiding in the crowd, had long wanted to run away, but the biker gang and the Sanjiang society had surrounded them. They couldn't run even if they wanted to. At this time, seeing that everyone's eyes were fixed on them, it was impossible to hide. They could only brace themselves and walk out. Although Zhu Dongmei was usually a shrew, she was so scared that she was trembling today. She couldn't help but hold Ho Qingzhu's hand. Unexpectedly, Ho Qingzhu shook her hand off and scolded, "You are a jinx. You always cause trouble for me. I won't forgive you." Seeing that the situation had changed, he immediately put all the blame on Zhu Dongmei. Ma Wenjue saw Zhu Dongmei's expression change. This woman was a big meatball, and now she looked miserable. Her face was covered with makeup. It was appropriate to say that she was neither a human nor a ghost. She didn't need makeup to act in a ghost film. He took 2 steps forward and patted Ho Qingzhu on the shoulder. "Is this your wife?" Ho Qingzhu quickly said with a flattering face, "Boss, this is my wife. Your taste is too heavy. Aren't you afraid of being crushed to death when you sleep at night?" Ma Wenjue's question was very sharp. Even Qin Haodong felt a little dumbfounded. Ho Qingzhu originally wanted to say that he was not afraid, but on second thought, this was the boss's intention. He should go along with it, so he quickly said, "Boss, I'm a little scared." Seeing that the man was so cowardly, Zhu Dongmei was almost mad. He could even say such spineless words. "If you're afraid, why did you find such a meatball? Are you out of your mind?" As Ma Wenjue spoke, he raised his leg and kicked Ho Qingzhu's lower abdomen, sending him flying 6 or 7 meters away. Chapter 453. Ho Qingzhu was already a heavy smoker, and he almost fainted from the kick. Ma Wenjue looked at him coldly and shouted, "Get back here." "I'm coming, boss." Ho Qingzhu endured the pain and crawled back to Ma Wenjue. "Both of you, kneel properly." Ma Wenjue's order scared Ho Qingzhu and his wife. They immediately knelt on the ground. Even Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun had knelt down. They didn't dare to think about losing face. Ma Wenjue glanced at Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun. "You two, come here and teach them how to behave." Since there was finally a chance to show off, Yang Jinlong quickly said, "Why are you still King stupid? Quickly slap yourself and apologize to the boss." Although he had some relationship with Ho Qingzhu, he couldn't care less at this time. Moreover, the two of them hated Ho Qingzhu to the core. If it weren't for the husband and wife, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Besides, he had already slapped himself. Why wouldn't they slap him? Ho Qingzhu braced himself and raised his hand to slap himself. It hurt a lot, so the second slap was much lighter. Zhu Dongmei was a woman. Although she was very ugly, she still cared about her appearance. Naturally, she was lighter than Ho Qingzhu. Seeing this situation, Ma Wenjue said discontentedly, "What are you doing? Are you giving me a massage or tickling?" Ho Qingzhu and Xiong Taijun quickly increased their strength, but it still didn't satisfy Ma Wenjue. He turned his head to look at Xiong Taijun and Xiong Taijun. "You two, slap hard. If I'm not satisfied, I'll cut off your claws." He asked Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun to slap their friends. This was to give Qin Haodong an explanation and also to sow discord between them. He was afraid that they would never be friends in this life. Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun couldn't care less now. Moreover, they were implicated by Ho Qingzhu. They were already angry and now they finally had a chance to vent. They slapped the two people's faces one after another. It was much more enjoyable to hit others than to hit themselves. Soon, Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei were bleeding from the corners of their mouths and their heads were swollen like pigs. Just like that, the two of them slapped each other again and again as though they were competing. The crisp sounds of slapping reverberated in everyone's ears. Looking at the miserable appearance of these two people, Jia Shihan's expression changed a little. She said in Qin Haodong's ear, "Is it about time? Why don't we ask them to stop?" Qin Haodong glanced at her. This naive little girl was still very kind. "Have you ever thought about what would happen to us if we were the ones who fell into their hands?" This, Jia Shihan was immediately speechless. She was not a fool. Just now, Zhu Dongmei had clamored that she would castrate Qin Haodong and then find 100 men to take turns with her. With this woman's character, she was not joking. If she and Qin Haodong fell into their hands, it would be difficult for them to escape. Qin Haodong added, "In this society, you can't be soft-hearted to evil people. There's a Buddhist saying that killing evil people is doing a good deed. People with black hearts like this should be taught a lesson." Jia Shihan nodded and said, "I understand." In this way, Ho Qingzhu and his wife were slapped more than 100 times. They were about to faint from the slaps. Qin Haodong then said lightly, "Okay, that's it for now." Hearing Qin Haodong's words, Yang Jinlong and his wife stopped and then scolded Ho Qingzhu, "The boss showed mercy and let you two go. Hurry up and thank him." "Thank you, boss." "Thank you, boss." At this time, Ho Qingzhu and his wife had been completely subdued. They were beaten like this, but they did not dare to show any hatred. Ma Wenjua looked at Qin Haodong and said, "Boss, is this okay?" "That's it for now." Qin Haodong looked at Ho Qingzhu and his wife and said, "Can you take out the contract now?" Yes, it's here." Although Jia Shihan was the cash cow of their tea house, the two of them did not dare to go against Qin Haodong's wishes. Ho Qingzhu reached out and took out a contract from his pocket and handed it to Qin Haodong. After Qin Haodong asked Jia Shihan to confirm that there was no mistake, he rubbed his hands and the contract immediately turned into a pile of powder. Jia Shihan was excited. During this time, she had been overwhelmed by the contract. It was like a shackle around her neck. Now, she could finally be free. Ho Qingzhu said with a flattering face, "Boss, I have already handed over the contract. Do you think you can just let us go like a fart?" "It's not that simple." Qin Haodong said, "I just told your wife that if she provoked me again, I would tear down your tea house. Now it's time to fulfill my promise." As soon as he finished speaking, Ma Wenjua immediately said to Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun, "Did you hear that? The boss has spoken. Hurry up and take your people to tear down this tea house." Although Ho Qingzhu and his wife had just been beaten up, they still felt as if they had been struck by lightning. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue to them. They quickly cried and shouted, "You can't tear it down. The Hemming tea house is a century-old business. You can't tear it down." They had just been slapped more than 100 times, but they didn't dare to let out a fart. Now that they wanted to tear down the tea house, these two guys were like crazy. They crawled over to hug Qin Haodong's thigh, but they were both kicked away by Yang Jinlong. "You guys are blind. Can you change my boss's decision?" Ma Wenjua glanced at him and said, "I'll give you two a chance to make up for your mistakes. Hurry up and do it." Hearing that they could make up for their mistakes, Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun immediately became excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They quickly agreed. Originally, they were worried that the biker gang and the Sanjiang society would no longer have a foothold. Now, it seemed that as long as this matter could be done to the satisfaction of the boss, then the two gangs would be saved. Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei lay on the ground and wailed. Money could be earned again. No matter how ugly their faces were after being slapped, there would always be a day when the swelling would disappear. However, if the Hemming tea house was demolished, then they would be completely finished. "Boys, did you hear that? Hurry up and do it." The two of them gave orders to their men respectively. The biker gang and the Sanjiang society added up to a total of nearly 200 punks. They waved the weapons in their hands and rushed to the Hemming tea house together. Smoke and dust rose from the smashing scene. Qin Haodong and Ma Wenjue walked out of the hemming tea house with their men and returned to the van to watch the fun. Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei, who were lying on the ground, were also dragged out of the tea house by the people from the daddy security company and thrown in front of the van. How could the boss not be there for such a lively event like tearing down a house? Yang Jinlong directed his men to climb to the second floor of the tea house, took down the plaque of the hemming tea house, and then chopped it into pieces with a machete. In order to show off in front of Ma Wenjue, Xiong Taijun was naturally unwilling to fall behind. He shouted to his men, "Brothers, hurry up and tear down this tea house." The more people there were, the easier it was. The 200 or so people shouted loudly, and their combat power soared. They waved the machetes and steel pipes in their hands and launched a general attack on the hemming tea house. They didn't have the courage to face the daddy security company, but they were full of fighting power when facing this tea house. Their destructive power was extremely strong. In the blink of an eye, the tables were smashed, the benches were smashed, and even the various furnishings and cultural relics in the tea house were all chopped and smashed. Soon, they became worthless. Even the chefs who were cooking in the kitchen were pulled out and chased out of the hemming tea house after a round of punches and kicks. The passers-by didn't know what had happened. They stopped one after another and gathered in front of the door to watch. At first, they thought that this century-old shop was going to be renovated. Later, it seemed that it wasn't the case. It was obviously tearing down the house. Seeing that the hemming tea house, which had just been bustling with business, had now turned into ruins, Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei lay on the ground and wailed. They stomped their feet and beat their chests. This was a century-old shop that had been passed down in their family for more than 100 years. Now, it was destroyed in their hands. While they were crying, a faint voice sounded behind them. A century-old shop is indeed valuable, but as a business operator, if you don't even abide by the most basic rules of competition, you don't even have the basic morality of being a human. Using a century-old shop as a capital to bully employees and a tool to accumulate money, there is no need for such a century-old shop to exist. Ma Wenjue nodded and said, "Yes, it is true. A century-old shop in the hands of such a person will only shame its brand. It's better to stop it." The two of them weren't educating Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei. They weren't interested. They were just expressing their inner opinions to each other. Whether it was as a martial artist or as the controller of the daddy security company, they still had to keep the bottom line. Ho Qingzhu and Zhu Dongmei couldn't understand so deeply. There was only regret in their hearts now. If they had known that bullying Jia Shihan would cause a disaster, they wouldn't have done it anyway. Until now, they hadn't reflected on their mistakes. They just felt that they were wrong to provoke people they couldn't afford to provoke. At the same time that the hemming tea house was being demolished, Huang Xiluan was lying on a hospital bed. A middle-aged man in his 50s stood at the head of the bed. This man was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. His hair was meticulously combed. He looked very powerful. He was the big boss of the real estate industry in Shanghai, Huang Xiluan's father, Huang Jianye. Huang Xiluan cried bitterly and said, "Dad, the doctor said that your son's hand is completely useless. He will be disabled in the future, and his life will be ruined. I just touched that woman's butt. Who knew that the wild man she seduced would beat me like this? You must help me." Huang Jianye's face was very ugly. He stared at his son, but there was no love or pity in his eyes. On the contrary, they were full of anger. Huang Xiluan cried for a long time, but his father didn't respond. He asked in surprise, "Dad, why are you looking at me like that?" Huang Jianye's expression suddenly changed. He raised his hand and slapped Huang Xiluan's face fiercely. "Today, I must kill you so that you won't cause me trouble everywhere." Huang Xiluan hurriedly raised his intact left hand to protect his face. He cried and shouted, "Dad, I'm already like this. Why are you still hitting me? Am I your son or not? I would rather not have you as my son." Huang Jianye shouted angrily, "Little bastard, you have caused me great trouble today. He had been trying his best to suppress the anger in his heart. Now, he could no longer control it. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Huang Xiluan had always been a playboy. He straightened his neck and shouted, "It was me who was beaten like this by others, okay? How did I cause trouble for you? You're a scammer. This time, you provoked someone you can't afford to provoke." Huang Jianya scolded, "You still don't understand? Because of the trouble you caused today, it's very likely that our family will be implicated. Maybe we'll be completely finished." Huang Xiluan said with a face full of disbelief, "That's impossible. The other party is just a gigolo. That woman is just a smelly zither player. She has no background. How could she threaten our Huang family?" Chapter 454. You don't know shit. Huang Jianya scolded, "That woman really has no background, but we can't afford to offend that gigolo. Even King Ma of the Daddy Security Company calls him boss. The Hemming Tea House has been demolished by them." "What? King Ma's boss?" Hearing this, Huang Xiluan was also shocked. Their Huang family was a big real estate business, but they were neither black nor white. They often used their connections in the underworld to do some strong things. They often used their connections in the underworld to get stronger, doing dirty work in order to obtain greater benefits. Because of this, the father and son of the Huang family had a deep relationship with the underworld, especially the Sickle Society in Shanghai, which used to play the role of thugs for their family. However, just a month ago, the underground world of Shanghai changed dramatically. The Daddy Security Company came out of nowhere and wiped out many gangs overnight. The Sickle Society was one of them. Since then, although the Daddy Security Company did not engage in the underworld, it ruled the underworld and became an existence that made the underworld people change their faces. Ma Wenjue, in particular, was secretly given the nickname of King Ma. Even their partner, the Sickle Society, was destroyed easily. The father and son of the Huang family naturally knew the horror of the Daddy Security Company. Since then, Ma Wenjue had been listed as a person who could not be provoked. However, they never expected to provoke him today. Huang Jianya said, "Just now, our people sent back news that the gigolo is the boss of King Ma. Xiong Taijun of the biker gang and Yang Jinlong of the Sanjiang Society are kneeling on the ground and slapping their mouths to apologize. Just because of his words, even the Hemming Tea House has been demolished." Huang Xiluan also felt fear and quickly asked, "Dad, what should we do?" Huang Jianya turned around twice on the ground and then said, "What else can we do? Hurry up and apologize. Otherwise, with one word from King Ma, the biker gang and the Sanjiang Society will rush to tear down our real estate company." 10 minutes later, the father and son of the Huang family arrived at the scene. At this time, the Hemming Tea House had been almost demolished. Although the main body of the building was still there, the inside had become a ruin. Smoke and dust filled the air, and there was no longer the magnificence of the past. Seeing this scene, and looking at Xiong Taijun and Yang Jinlong whose cheeks were swollen, the two of them could not help but shiver from the bottom of their hearts. Even the Hemming Tea House, which was known to be popular with both the underworld and the underworld, had been smashed. The bosses of the biker gang and the Sanjiang Society had also become like this. They did not dare to hesitate at all and immediately came to Ma Wenjue with a flattering face. Huang Jianya bowed and said, "Mr. Ma, I'm really sorry. My son has caused you trouble. I brought this unfilial son here to apologize to you." Although Huang Xiluan's entire body was in pain, especially the hand that had been crushed, the pain was so intense that it penetrated into his bone marrow. However, the situation in front of him did not allow him to be negligent. He could only grit his teeth and swallow the blood as he bowed behind him. Ma Wenjue looked at the father and son coldly and said, "I'm not the one you should apologize to." He pointed to Qin Haodong next to him and said, "This is my boss, Qin Haodong. As long as he is satisfied, this matter will be over. If he is not satisfied, then think about the consequences yourself." Hearing this, Huang Jianye's body trembled slightly. He quickly turned his head and bowed to Qin Haodong. I'm sorry, Mr. Qin. I didn't discipline my son well. Please be magnanimous, Mr. Qin. Qin Haodong said, you don't have to apologize to me. Your son has angered my friend. How to deal with it is up to her. Wang Jianye turned his head to look at Jia Shihan next to him. His eyes suddenly flashed with amazement. This woman was really beautiful. No wonder his son could not control himself. However, amazement was amazement, and understanding was understanding. What he had to do now was to calm Qin Haodong's anger. He quickly apologized to Jia Shihan. Miss, please forgive my son this time. Jia Shihan was inexperienced and had very little social experience. When she was insulted by Huang Cailuan just now, she wanted to cut this guy into pieces. However, at this time, when the Huang father and son bowed their heads and apologized, she did not know what to do. There was even a trace of restraint in her expression. Forget it. Let bygones be bygones. Don't let him bother me in the future. Miss, don't worry. After I go back, I will discipline this little bastard strictly. I will never offend him again. Seeing that Jia Shihan no longer held him responsible, Huang Jianye breathed a sigh of relief. He took out the checkbook, wrote a check for 1 million yuan, and sent it to Ma Wenjue. Mr. Ma, my little bastard accidentally offended Mr. Qin and this girl. This money is a little apology. Please accept it. Huang Cailuan lowered his head behind his father. His heart was extremely aggrieved. His palm had been crushed, but now he had to compensate and apologize. However, in the face of the legendary King Ma, he did not dare to show the dissatisfaction in his heart. Ma Wenjue took the check and glanced at it. It was a check with a face value of 1 million yuan. He flicked it in his hand and said sarcastically, Boss Huang, I heard that you are a big producer in Shanghai. You offended our boss and only took out such a small amount of money. Aren't you too stingy? This, Huang Jianye was originally a miser. He saw that Qin Haodong and Jia Shihan were dressed in ordinary clothes, so he thought that 1 million yuan was a lot. He did not expect to be pointed out in front of him. As if seeing through his thoughts, Ma Wenjue said, Boss Huang, it's because you have a lot of money, right? Let me tell you, a few days ago, our boss gave our employees benefits. Each person received 10 million yuan, including the sweeper of our daddy security company. Do you think you have the nerve to take out this 1 million yuan? This, Huang Jianye's old face was embarrassed. He did not expect that the gentle and quiet young man in front of him would have such a large amount of money. 10 million yuan for each employee. How much money would that add up to? It would probably be more than 1 billion yuan, right? At this time, Yang Jinlong, who had been standing respectfully next to him, said, Old Huang, you are really King stingy. Asking the boss to forgive you is already a great kindness. How could you take out such a small amount of money? Didn't you see what happened to Ho Qingzhu? After hearing this, Huang Jianye suddenly realized his situation. If he was like Ho Qingzhu, then he would really be bankrupt. He quickly said, Mr. Ma, you misunderstood. This 1 million yuan is just pocket money for Qin Shencheng. In addition, I also want to give Mr. Qin a house as an apology. Seeing his attitude, Ma Wenjue nodded slightly, your idea is good. My boss has just arrived in Shanghai, so he really doesn't have a place to live. You have so many houses, so you must give him a decent house. If my boss is not satisfied, I will immediately ask someone to dismantle your real estate company. He was very clear about Huang Jianye's character. This guy usually made a lot of money, so it was right to cut him. No, the house given to Boss Qin must be the best. Huang Jianye wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and said, the best community of our real estate company is in Shanghai. I am going to give the best villa in Shanghai to Mr. Qin. Ma Wenjue looked at Qin Haodong and said, what do you think, boss? Are you satisfied with this house? Qin Haodong thought about it. He had just arrived in Shanghai, so he really didn't have a place to live. Moreover, Lin Momo and her daughter would come over after a period of time. Sooner or later, he would also buy a house. Now that this guy had sent it to him, it was just right. He said, "How far is your house from the Shanghai Medical College?" Huang Jianya said, "Not far, not far. It's only a road away." Hearing this, Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Well, I'll take it." Seeing that the big boss was finally satisfied, Huang Jianya secretly breathed a sigh of relief. When Xiong Taijun had just demolished the house, he was a little behind Yang Jinlong and didn't get the plaque. He was afraid that Ma Wenjue would be dissatisfied with him, so he quickly seized the opportunity to please him and said, "Boss, do you have your ID? I still have some connections in the real estate bureau. I will help you with the real estate procedures now." Qin Haodong took out his ID card and threw it to him, saying, "Thank you for your hard work." Hearing this, Xiong Taijun was immediately overjoyed. As long as the boss of the boss was satisfied, his street racer gang could go further in Shanghai in the future. He turned around and said to Huang Jianya, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get the real estate certificate for the boss." I'm leaving." Huang Jianya said as he was about to call his driver over. Xiong Taijun said, "Your car is too slow. Let's take our car." After that, he waved his hand and a street racer gang member immediately sent his Crown Prince motorcycle over. He got on the bike first, then turned around and shouted to Huang Jianya, "Get on." In a place with traffic jams like Shanghai, riding a motorcycle was indeed much faster than a car. Xiong Taijun's decision greatly improved efficiency. Wait a minute. Seeing that the limelight had been stolen by his companion, Yang Jinlong quickly said, "Old Huang, where do you think the house is? I'll go and have a look now. If there's anything missing, I'll immediately make it up for Boss Qin." Huang Jianya said, "It's the number 1 villa in the number 1 district of Shanghai. It's fully renovated. You just need to add some home appliances and daily necessities." After listening to his father, Huang Xiluan's heart suddenly twitched. This house was left by Huang Jianya for his marriage, but now it had been given away. However, there was no other way. Who told him to provoke someone he shouldn't have? Now that the matter had been resolved, he quietly returned to the hospital with his men. Xiong Taijun ran away with Huang Jianya and a dozen of his men. Qin Haodong turned his head and said to Jia Shihan, "Where do you live now?" Jia Shihan said, "I'm renting a house outside." With Ho Qingzhu and his wife's harshness, he believed that Jia Shihan's living environment would not be much better. Qin Haodong said, "I have a house now. Why don't you move to my place?" Jia Shihan's cheeks turned red and she said shyly, "Forget it. That's your house. It's not appropriate for me to live there." "What's not appropriate?" "You heard it. It's a villa. There are enough rooms. You can choose any one." What did he want to say to Jia Shihan? He said again, "It's not safe for you to live alone. It would not be good if this adulterous couple causes trouble for you again." Jia Shihan thought for a moment, nodded, and said, "Well, I've troubled you. It's no trouble at all. It's such a big house. It's empty even if I live alone." Qin Haodong said, "Is there anything else you want to take from the house you rented?" Jia Shihan said, "I have to go. My clothes are all there." "Well, let's go and get them now." Jia Shihan nodded. "Thank you." Thinking of living in the same house with a man, although the villa was big enough, she still felt a little hot on her cheeks. She didn't know why, but she had an inexplicable sense of trust in this man she had met for the first time. Ma Wenjue secretly pulled Qin Haodong aside and whispered in his ear, "Boss, you are really my boss. Your skills in picking up girls are simply at the peak. As soon as you arrived in Shanghai, you found such a beautiful woman and immediately brought her home. When will you pass this to me? I've been in Shanghai for so long, but I'm still single." Chapter 455. Ma Wenjue didn't have a spirit as strong as Qin Haodong's. Naturally, he couldn't see the seal in Jia Shihan's body. In his opinion, his close friend was starting to have luck with women again. Qin Haodong pushed him away. Come on, we are in a serious relationship. Ma Wenjue smiled and said, I know, a serious relationship between a man and a woman. Qin Haodong ignored him and turned to Jia Shihan and said, where is the house you rented? Let's go get it now. Jia Shihan gave him an address. Qin Haodong had just arrived in Shanghai, so he was not familiar with this place. Yang Jinlong quickly said, I know where it is. It's really a coincidence. It's near the suite that Huang Jianye gave you. Your house is in the first phase of the project, and the location of the rented house is in the fourth phase of the project. Let's go together. It's on the way. As soon as he finished speaking, Ma Wenjue pulled him away. What do you mean on the way? We're going to look at the house, and they're going to get their things. We're not on the way. Let's go first. After that, he pulled Yang Jinlong up and got into the car. His men followed behind and ran away. What the F***ck? Although Qin Haodong knew that Ma Wenjue wanted to create an opportunity for him, he should at least leave a car for him. Now, he was running faster than the other. There wasn't a car left, so he could only take a taxi. The two of them came to the place where Jia Shihan rented a house. This was the fourth phase of the Shanghai's first-grade community. It had already entered the state of demolition. However, because of the shortage of housing in Shanghai and the high rent, there was no depression here. On the contrary, there were sheds everywhere, rented to some poor people who had no money. However, these houses, which were not much better than cow sheds, looked a little dilapidated. Qin Haodong looked at the fairy-like Jia Shihan and said with pity, You live in such a place? Yes. Jia Shihan nodded with a red face. The houses here are cheap. A single room only costs 500 yuan a month. The houses in Shanghai are too expensive. The lady boss only gives me a salary of 1,000 yuan a month, so I can only live here. Qin Haodong frowned, but there was nothing he could do about it. You know, in big cities like the capital and Shanghai, many so-called job-hunting apartments are ordinary 3-bedroom apartments with a dozen bunk beds and dozens of people living in them. A bed costs 1,800 yuan a month. Nowadays, in an economic center like Shanghai, what could one do with 1,000 yuan a month? If she hadn't worked in the tea house, Jia Shihan would have starved. She could imagine what the single room she mentioned would look like. This Zhu Dongmei was really ruthless. Jia Shihan helped her attract so many customers and earn so much money. On the contrary, she gave her such a low salary. It was really too much. This guy was wearing a set of silk pajamas and waving a cattail leaf fan in his hand. He was born with a hooked nose and triangular eyes. At first glance, one could tell that he was not a good person. He was the landlord here, Li Hui. He built all the makeshift houses nearby. Jia Shihan said, Mr. Landlord, I have a new place to live. I don't want to live here anymore. What? You're leaving? Li Hui narrowed his triangular eyes and said, It doesn't matter if you want to leave, but we agreed before that no matter how long you live, you have to pay a year's rent. Now you've only paid for half a year. Since you don't want to live here anymore, you should pay me the rest of the money. 500 yuan a month, 3,000 yuan for 6 months, not a penny less. Jia Shihan said, Mr. Landlord, why are you so unreasonable? We said before that we wanted to rent a house for a year, but we didn't say that we had to pay for it. Li Hui was treacherous. He smiled and said, Really? I may have forgotten that, but this is the rule I set. Anyone who rents a house here must abide by it, and you are the same. Jia Shihan said angrily, You're being unreasonable. I only lived here for 3 months and paid you half a year's rent. I don't want it for 3 months. What else do you want? Li Hui's face darkened and said, Do you poor people from other places understand the rules? It's natural to pay for renting a house. You should pay for living in my house. If you don't pay a year's rent, don't even think about leaving today. Jia Shihan said angrily, I should pay for renting a house, but I only lived here for 3 months. Why should I pay you a year's rent? Why? Because the house here is mine. Li Hui said with an arrogant face, let me tell you, little girl. I can rent a house here, so I have a background. The boss of the street racer gang is my sworn brother. If you know what's good for you, pay the money. Otherwise, you can't afford the consequences. Jia Shihan still wanted to say something, but Qin Haodong pulled her behind him. He took 2 steps forward and said, she only lived in your house for 3 months, but she paid half a year's rent, right? Li Hui said, yes, so she still owes me half a year's rent. Qin Haodong said, since she only lived here for 3 months, you should return the rest of the rent. Now hurry up and get the money. Generally speaking, if a tenant checked out of the house in advance, the rent and deposit paid in advance would be returned. He had never seen such an overbearing landlord. She didn't want to live here anymore, but she still had to pay a year's rent in advance. What was the difference between this and robbery? Although that amount of money was nothing to him now, it was the hard-earned money of Jia Shihan. This poor girl had already suffered a lot from the tigress, Zhou Dongmei. He couldn't let her be bullied again. Seeing that the person in front of him actually asked him for money, Li Hui glared at him with his triangular eyes. Are you crazy? How dare you ask me for money? Don't you know who I, Li Hui, am? Who have I refunded the rent for so many years? Hurry up and pay the rest of the rent, or none of you can leave. Qin Haodong frowned. He was not a violent person. He didn't want to use this method unless it was a last resort. Now that you have your own house, you should refund the rent to us. What a joke. You 2 poor people can still have your own house in Shanghai. Don't tell me that you live in the villa over there. You would point at the villas next to them and laugh arrogantly. If you can buy a house there, I'll refund you 100 times the rent. But you poor bastards, you'll never be able to afford it in this lifetime. In his opinion, Jia Shihan must be a poor person. No rich person would rent a house here. Qin Haodong's clothes were even more ordinary. He only had a few hundred yuan on him. In any case, he couldn't be compared to a rich person. Qin Haodong's face sank and said, hurry up and refund the remaining 3 months' rent, or you can't afford the consequences. Boy, how dare you talk to me like this? Do you know who I am? I am the sworn brother of the biker gang's boss. When my brother comes, I will skin you alive. Li Hui was talking with his saliva flying everywhere when suddenly a roar of motors came. More than a dozen motorcycles drove over quickly with a burst of smoke and dust. The leader was a Crown Prince motorcycle, and the person sitting on it was the boss of the biker gang, Xiong Taijun. When Li Hui saw those motorcycles, he immediately shouted arrogantly, boy, did you see that? My brother is here. You are in big trouble now. He did have a little relationship with Xiong Taijun, but they were not sworn brothers like he said. They were relatives who had nothing to do with each other. At this time, the motorcycles stopped in front of them. Li Hui immediately ran up with a flattering face. Brother Xiong, I didn't expect you to come. Don't leave this afternoon. I will treat you well and treat you. Before he finished speaking, Xiong Taijun pushed him and ran to Qin Haodong with a charming smile. He took out a big red property certificate and said, Boss, I have done the property certificate for you. Li Hui got up from the ground. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could Boss Xiong, who had always been arrogant, be so polite to a young man? To be exact, it was not polite anymore. It was like seeing his own father. And if he didn't hear wrong, Xiong Taijun seemed to call this young man boss. The boss of the biker gang's boss. Who did he just provoke? Good job. Qin Haodong praised. He took the property certificate and looked at it. He turned to Li Hui and said, Didn't you say that as long as I can buy a house in the villa area, you will refund me 100 times the rent? Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise. Chapter 456. This. Li Hui's face suddenly turned bitter. Was there anything worse than this? How could a poor man who had moved out of his place have a big villa in the blink of an eye? But this kind of thing happened right in front of his eyes. Qin Haodong's face turned cold. What? Do you want to go back on your word? Seeing this situation, how could Xiong Taijun let go of this opportunity to please him? He stepped forward and slapped Li Hui in the face. Do you want to die? Hurry up and do as Boss Qin said. If you don't satisfy my boss today, our street racer gang will chop you every time we see you in the future. Here, I'll give it to you now. Li Hui wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and then took out a bank card from his pocket. Boss, I have 200,000 yuan in this card. The password is 6 zeros. Please accept it. He really didn't have 150,000 yuan in cash, nor did he have a bank card with exactly 150,000 yuan. He was afraid that Xiong Taijun would really get mad and tear this place down. He could only bear the pain and take out the 200,000 yuan. Xiong Taijun grabbed the bank card and then handed it to Qin Haodong in a flattering manner. Boss, are you satisfied? If you are not satisfied, I will make this bastard bleed more. Qin Haodong took the card and handed it to Jia Shihan. Take this money and use it as pocket money. Jia Shihan was a little stunned. She only had 1,500 yuan in rent from Li Hui. Now, in the blink of an eye, it had increased more than 100 times to 200,000 yuan. However, she also knew that this money was completely from Qin Haodong. She quickly said, "This is the money you asked for. I can't take it. You heard it just now. This is 100 times the rent returned to you. You should take it." Qin Haodong saw that she was still a little hesitant, so he said, "Why are you still being polite to this kind of person? He is also black-hearted money. It would be a waste not to spend it." Jia Shihan hesitated for a moment and finally took the bank card. Seeing that 200,000 yuan was gone just like that, Li Hui felt a pain in his heart. Originally, he thought that Jia Shihan was a woman who was easy to bully, so he came over to extort another sum of money. He didn't expect that he wouldn't get the money. On the contrary, he would lose 200,000 yuan. Qin Haodong turned back and said to him, "Be honest in the future. The people who rent houses here are all poor people. Don't make things worse for them." Xiong Taijun also shouted, "Boss is teaching you a lesson, did you hear that? In the future, if I ever find out that you're doing such shameful things, I'll be the first to cripple you." I heard it. I won't do it again." Li Hui hurriedly nodded. From that day on, he really did not dare to casually increase the rent. It was not that he found his conscience, but he was afraid that if he met someone like Qin Haodong again, he would go bankrupt. After the matter was settled, Qin Haodong took the Crown Prince motorcycle from Xiong Taijun and rushed to his new house with Jia Shihan. Arriving at the villa given by Huang Jianye, Qin Haodong couldn't help but secretly nod. After all, it was a big city like Shanghai. The villa was even better than his in Jiangnan City. The whole house was built in European style, which was both magnificent and artistic. This was a 4-story villa. There was a small courtyard of nearly 1,000 square meters outside, complete with facilities such as a gym and swimming pool. The most important thing was that the location of this villa was excellent. It was halfway up the mountain. Sitting in the room, one could have a panoramic view of the entire Shanghai Medical College. When they entered the door, Huang Jinlong was busy with the brothers of the Sanjiang Society. They moved all kinds of household appliances and daily necessities that they had just bought into the villa one by one. According to Ma Wenjuo's instructions, they put them away one by one. When Qin Haodong entered the door, the whole villa was ready. He only needed to move in. Jia Shihan's eyes lit up when she saw this house. She liked it very much and checked room by room. Ma Wenjuo sat on the leather sofa in the living room with Qin Haodong. He put his arm around Qin Haodong's shoulder and said, "Dongzi, your house is really good. I like it. Qin Haodong said, if you like it, then move in with us. Anyway, there are plenty of rooms here. Ma Wenjue punched him in the chest. Come on, do you want me, a single dog, to watch you show off your love? I'm not looking for trouble. Qin Haodong said with a smile, then you should hurry up and find one. When you get married, I will also give you a villa. It's not that easy to find a girlfriend. Ma Wenjue spread out his hands and said with a helpless expression, a man like me, who is handsome and outstanding, can't be attracted to ordinary women at all. There are too few women who can match me. Can you be more shameless? Qin Haodong said jokingly, there are not many women who can match a cheeky man like you. How can I be cheeky? I'm just too outstanding. I admire myself. Ma Wenjue puffed up his chest and said, you don't need to say that I'm handsome. If being handsome is a sin, then I'm the most sinful kind. Let's talk about ability. I am the owner of the Kailan Holy Body, a rare martial arts genius. Although I have only been practicing martial arts for less than 2 months, I have now reached the half-step to the Supreme Power Realm. He looked at Qin Haodong with a smirk. What do you think, Dongzi? Did you hear me clearly? I am now a half-step to the Supreme Power Realm. Are you jealous? Are you jealous? But I'm so outstanding. You can't learn this kind of talent. It's useless to be jealous. Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. He really didn't notice it before. Now he found that Ma Wenjue had reached the half-step to the Supreme Power Realm. He had made such a high achievement in 2 months. No wonder this guy was so proud. People with the holy body were really enviable. The Kailan holy body was only ranked 8th among the top 10 holy bodies in the cultivation world, but its cultivation speed was as fast as a rocket. It had to be said that there were geniuses in this world. People with the holy body could cultivate more than 100 times faster than ordinary people. Ma Wenjue's cultivation speed was really fast, but it was not entirely because of the Kailan holy body. Another reason was that Qin Haodong gave him the big spirit culturing pill like candy. This kind of treatment was rare even in the big sects in the cultivation world. Seeing that Qin Haodong didn't speak, Ma Wenjue became more and more proud. How about it? Dongzi, are you scared by your brother's talent? How's your cultivation now? Are you embarrassed to say that you haven't made any progress recently? But don't worry, I will protect you in the future. As long as Brother Ma is here, no one can bully my brother. He was showing off unscrupulously when he suddenly felt a huge pressure enveloping him, making it difficult for him to breathe. You. What's your cultivation? Have you entered the Supreme Power Realm? Ma Wenjue looked at Qin Haodong in horror. Ever since his cultivation had entered the realm of half a step to the Supreme Power Realm, he had never met a worthy opponent in Shanghai. He originally wanted to show off to his good brother, but who would have thought that Qin Haodong would not even need to make a move? Qin Haodong had suppressed him with his coercion alone. Qin Haodong stretched out his hand and patted Ma Wenjue's cheek. My cultivation is not very high. I'm only a level 3 Supreme Power Realm. A half step to the Supreme Power Realm like you can kill more than 100 people with one slap. Although having a holy body was enviable, he didn't want his brother to be too proud and delay the progress of his cultivation. Therefore, he showed his cultivation and suppressed Ma Wenjue's momentum. Ma Wenjue came back to his senses. The pride on his face had already disappeared. He said angrily, This is too infuriating. How did you cultivate so quickly? Did you secretly eat the old lord's elixir? Qin Haodong said with a smile, You can't blame me. You're too stupid. Now, not only have I reached the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm, but Xiaoxian and Momo are also at the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm. So you have to hurry up and don't fall too far behind. What? How is that possible? Ma Wenjue's face was full of disbelief. He could understand if Hu Xiaoxian had reached the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm, but Lin Momo was an ordinary person who didn't know martial arts. How could she improve so much all of a sudden? He said, Dongzi, even if you want to attack me, you don't have to lie. How could Momo reach the third level of the Supreme Power Realm? Qin Haodong said, forget it if you don't believe me. When Momo comes to Shanghai in a few days, you can try it with her. You'll suffer at that time. Seeing that he was serious, Ma Wenjue asked again, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Do I need to lie about this kind of thing? Ma Wenjue's face was full of disappointment. This was too much of a blow. Originally, he thought that when he reached the half-step to the Supreme Power Realm, he would be able to look down on the entire Daddy Security Company. He didn't expect that not only would he lose to Qin Haodong, but even Lin Momo would surpass him. After a moment of disappointment, he suddenly jumped up and pressed Qin Haodong down on the sofa. He pinched Qin Haodong's neck and said, Dongzi, we're good friends. How dare you hide the elixir from me? You're putting love before friendship. Hurry up and take out the elixir. In his opinion, the reason why Lin Momo could improve so fast must be that Qin Haodong had refined a new elixir. Otherwise, there was no other explanation. Qin Haodong pushed him away and said, come on, there's no elixir in this world. You're just talking nonsense. Ma Wenjue put his arm around Qin Haodong's shoulder with a flattering face and said, Dongzi, don't lie to me. Without the elixir, how could Momo suddenly become a level 3 Supreme Power Master from an ordinary person? You must have refined another good elixir. Hurry up and give me one. You can't be stingy. We're brothers. Qin Haodong had no choice but to say, there's really no elixir. I used a secret method to help Momo and Xiaoxian improve their cultivation. After listening to him, Ma Wenjue did not give up. On the contrary, his eyes became brighter and brighter. I was wondering how they could improve so fast. In terms of qualifications, they are definitely not as good as my Kailan holy body. It must be you who helped them. He grabbed Qin Haodong's arm and said, I don't care. Anyway, you can't abandon your brothers and women. Hurry up and help me improve. Seeing Ma Wenjue's face that was almost drooling, Qin Haodong couldn't help but feel a chill. He pushed him away and said, no, you absolutely can't. Ma Wenjue said angrily, you're such a heartless guy. If they can do it, why can't I? Then he pounced on Qin Haodong again and the two of them rolled on the sofa. At this moment, a voice came from the door behind them, what are you doing? Qin Haodong pushed Ma Wenjue out. When he saw Jia Shihan's strange expression, he was annoyed. Could it be that this girl misunderstood that he had a special hobby? He said awkwardly, don't get me wrong. We're just joking. He turned around and said to Ma Wenjue in a low voice, don't be delusional. I'm using the secret method of double cultivation. Even if you don't care, I care. I don't have such a heavy taste. Ma Wenjue's face instantly darkened. Of course, he couldn't use the secret method of double cultivation. However, he still said unwillingly, I know you have a lot of skills. Can't you think of another secret method, for example, the one suitable for men? Chapter 457. Qin Haodong said, what are you thinking about? Even the dual cultivation secret technique has a lot of restrictions. If it's so easy to create a grandmaster, who would want to cultivate it? Ma Wenjue thought about it and agreed. It seemed that it was impossible to take a shortcut and rely on Qin Haodong to quickly improve his cultivation. He said with a smile, I'm just joking with you. A self-reliant person like me never expects to rely on others. With my Kailan holy body, surpassing you is only a matter of minutes. Watching the two people bicker, Jia Shihan's expression did not change much, but there was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth. At this time, Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun walked in with a very fashionable middle-aged woman. Yang Jinlong said to Qin Haodong with a flattering face, Boss Qin, I saw that sister-in-law doesn't have many clothes. I was afraid that it would not be appropriate to buy them in the mall, so I specially invited a fashion designer to tailor them for sister-in-law. Don't worry, this is the top fashion designer in Shanghai. He is best at ancient styles. The clothes he designed are very suitable for sister-in-law's style. Xiong Taijun was unwilling to fall behind. He quickly said, "Boss, sister-in-law is so young and beautiful. She can't just wear ancient clothes. This is the fashion designer I invited. She is best at modern styles. The clothes she makes will definitely satisfy sister-in-law." In the eyes of these two people, the reason why Qin Haodong helped Jia Shihan was that he must have taken a fancy to her beauty, so he changed the way he addressed her and directly called her sister-in-law. Hearing them call her sister-in-law, Jia Shihan blushed and stammered, "Don't talk nonsense." Qin Haodong also said with a sullen face, "Your idea is good, but don't talk nonsense in the future. Otherwise, I will tear your mouths." "Got it, boss, we understand." The two of them had flattering smiles on their faces. In their opinion, the great boss was afraid that Jia Shihan would be shy, so he didn't allow them to say it. Although Qin Haodong reprimanded the two people, he felt that their idea was still good. When Jia Shihan was packing her luggage, he saw that there were only 2 sets of clothes, and they were quite old. They were not suitable for the style of modern society at all. There were no underwear, pajamas, or anything else. It was good to make some clothes for her. After Qin Haodong nodded, the 2 fashion designers immediately showed their magic and began to measure Jia Shihan. Jia Shihan hesitated for a moment but did not refuse in the end. Soon, Yang Jinlong and Xiong Taijun left with the 2 designers. Before they left, they repeatedly promised that they would deliver the clothes that night. "You two have your own world. I won't be a third wheel." Ma Wenjue greeted them and brought his men back. The spacious room suddenly quieted down, leaving only Qin Haodong and Jia Shihan. Facing Qin Haodong alone, Jia Shihan became nervous and said awkwardly, You don't really think like them, do you?" "Them?" Qin Haodong reacted for a moment and understood what Jia Shihan meant. He smiled and said, "Don't worry about this. Not only do I have girlfriends, but I also have more than one. I definitely don't have any other thoughts about you." Jia Shihan nervously pinched the corner of her clothes and said, "Then why are you helping me?" "I saw injustice on the road, so I drew my sword to help. Don't think too much. This matter is very simple for me." Looking at Qin Haodong's clear eyes without any impurities, Jia Shihan was relieved and said gratefully, "Thank you for saving me. Apart from master, you are the person who treats me the best." Qin Haodong said, "It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal." Jia Shihan said, "Well, in the future, leave the housework of this house to me. It's my rent. Now, I'll make lunch for you." After such a long time, it was already noon. Qin Haodong's morning tea had been digested and he was indeed a little hungry. "Well, I'll wait to taste your cooking. Master said that my cooking is very delicious." Jia Shihan said as she turned around and went into the kitchen, but soon came out again. She lowered her head and said shyly, "Can you teach me how to use these things?" "Oh." Qin Haodong was stunned for a moment before he realized that this girl had been living in the mountains and did not know how to use these modern things. So he went into the kitchen and taught Jia Shihan the use of modern things such as rice cookers, refrigerators, gas stoves, induction cookers, and range hoods from beginning to end. "How is it? Do you know how to use them now?" "Yes." Jia Shihan nodded. "I'm sorry, I haven't used these things before. I've troubled you." After that, she opened the refrigerator, took out 2 tomatoes from it, and cut them. Seeing that Jia Shihan was busy cooking, Qin Haodong turned around and went into the bathroom. After tossing and turning for the whole morning, his body was covered with a lot of dust. He was going to take a bath and report to school in the afternoon after eating. After taking off his clothes, he was washing happily in the bathroom when he suddenly heard a scream coming from the kitchen. "What's going on?" Hearing Jia Shihan's miserable scream, Qin Haodong didn't care about putting on his clothes. He grabbed a bath towel and wrapped it around his waist and rushed out. He thought that Ho Qingzhu had come to look for trouble. When he rushed to the kitchen, he found that Jia Shihan's body was on fire. Although she was constantly padding, the clothes on her body were constantly on fire. It was more important to save people. Chin Haodong quickly tore off the clothes on Jia Shihan's body that were on fire, and casually poured a basin of water that had just been washed from the vegetables on her head. Only then did the fire on her body extinguish. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief when the danger was lifted, but at this time, Jia Shihan screamed again. It turned out that Chin Haodong was in a hurry to save people just now, so he tore off all the burned and tattered clothes on her body, leaving only a red bellyband and a pair of floral shorts. At this time, they were exposed in front of Chin Haodong. She had never faced a man like this since she was a child. She instinctively hugged her chest with her hands. Who knew that she would touch the skin that had just been burned, so she screamed again. Don't move. The skin on your body is injured. Don't move. Chin Haodong hurriedly stopped Jia Shihan. As a doctor, he was very clear about the seriousness of skin burns. If she moved, it was easy to cause the injured skin to fall off, and the treatment would be very troublesome. Jia Shihan, who had just suffered a loss, didn't know whether to move or not. She stood there extremely awkwardly. Except for the TV series, Chin Haodong had never seen a woman wearing a bellyband. He couldn't help but take a few more glances. At this time, the bellyband had been burned full of holes, and it couldn't cover up the high curve of her chest. He couldn't help but think in his heart, I didn't expect that this little girl, who is gentle and quiet, is so hot. However, when he saw the burned skin on Jia Shihan's body, his expression immediately became serious. He didn't expect that in such a short period of time, such serious burns would be caused. From her face to her body, there were light and serious injuries. The burned skin formed a sharp contrast with the white and tender skin next to it, which made people's hearts palpitate. He asked, "What's going on? Why did it suddenly catch fire?" Jia Shihan endured the severe pain in her body, pointed to the gas stove and said, "I don't know. I just wanted to light a fire to cook, but I didn't expect it to catch fire all of a sudden." Chin Haodong looked at the burning gas stove and suddenly understood. Although she had learned to light the gas stove, she had forgotten the order. She first turned on the gas, then went to get the vegetables, and then lit the fire. Because the interval was too long, there was more gas leakage, leading to a small-scale gas explosion. At this time, Jia Shihan cried nervously, "How is it? Am I disfigured? Why does my face hurt so much?" Although there were several serious burns on her body, as a woman, she was most concerned about her appearance. "Don't worry, it's okay. I'm a doctor. I'll cure you soon." After Chin Haodong finished speaking, he turned off the gas stove and returned to the living room with Jia Shihan. "There are too many burns on your body. Don't move around. Just stand like this. I'll come back to treat you when I'm ready." After Chin Haodong told Jia Shihan, he took hot water, towels, scissors, and other items. He also took out a bottle of burn ointment from the divine ring. This bottle of burn ointment was originally prepared for the little fellow. It used a unique formula of the cultivation world and many precious medicinal materials. It had a magical effect on treating burns. Jia Shihan saw him take out the ointment and said, "My face, you must cure my face first." "It doesn't matter. Your burns are not too serious. They can be cured." As Chin Haodong spoke, he picked up a little green burn ointment with his finger and gently smeared it on the burned left cheek. As he smeared it, he used green wood genuine qi. Jia Shihan originally felt a burning pain on her left cheek. When the ointment was smeared, she immediately felt cool and very comfortable. She couldn't help but say, "Brother, your medical skills are really good. I told you that this is just a small injury. It will heal in minutes." As Chin Haodong spoke, he slowly applied the burn ointment to Jia Shihan from top to bottom. As the part of the ointment gradually moved down, Jia Shihan's body slowly tensed up because the current position was getting closer and closer to her chest. Chin Haodong finished applying the ointment to the burns on her neck and both sides of her shoulders. Then, he said, "Your belly band hinders the treatment. Can you take it off?" "No." Jia Shihan cried out reflexively. If she took off her belly band, her chest would be completely exposed. She had never been seen by anyone else in her life, let alone a man. "But your belly band is stuck to the burned skin. If you don't take it off, there's no way to treat it." Chin Haodong tried to persuade her, "Don't worry, I'm a doctor. A doctor has the heart of a parent. I definitely won't have any other ideas." Jia Shihan was still nervous. She said in a trembling voice, "Can you give me the ointment? I'll apply it myself." "That won't do." Chin Haodong said, "The skin on your chest is the most seriously injured. If you don't know medical skills, it will easily hurt the skin. At that time, it will aggravate the injury." There was one thing he hadn't explained. This ointment had to be combined with greenwood genuine qi to achieve the best effect. Although ordinary people could also use it to cure burns, the effect would be greatly reduced, and the healing time of the skin would be greatly extended. But, although she knew that this was needed for treatment, Jia Shihan still couldn't calmly expose her body. Under the tension, the skin all over her body turned red. Chin Haodong saw that the little girl was so futile and said helplessly, "Well, you can close your eyes and treat me as a woman." "Oh. Okay then." Jia Shihan seemed to have found a way to avoid shyness and closed her eyes cooperatively. "That works?" Chin Haodong was amused. Originally, he just said it casually. He didn't expect the innocent little girl to really listen to him. What was the use of closing her eyes? Her eyes were not closed. Was this the legendary, deceiving oneself while stealing a bell? Chapter 458. It was rare for Jia Shihan to agree. He was afraid that she would go back on her words after thinking it through. He quickly picked up the scissors and cut off the belly band on her chest. In an instant, the view of her chest was no longer blocked. The towering curve was proud and straight, but the burnt black skin on the side looked like a spoilsport. Chin Haodong picked up the ointment and began to apply it on the burned area. Although Jia Shihan closed her eyes, her sense of touch was still there. Feeling Chin Haodong's touch, her whole body was tense, and she even trembled slightly. Fortunately, there was a burst of pain from the wound from time to time, reducing her sense of shyness. Finally, Chin Haodong cleaned up all the burned parts of Jia Shihan. Fortunately, due to the location, the injuries below the waist were very light. There were only 1 or 2 burns on her thighs and calves, saving her from the embarrassment of taking off her shorts. Jia Shihan could no longer feel the pain on her body. She slowly opened her eyes. She looked down at the place where she had just been burned. The charred black skin had now turned into a dark red ferocious. It looked extremely ferocious. It was completely different from the uninjured skin on the side. "It's over. I'm completely finished." There was no girl who didn't want to be beautiful. When she saw the scars all over her body, Jia Shihan almost collapsed. She no longer cared about the shyness on her chest. She hurriedly took 2 steps and came to a mirror in the hall. When she saw herself in the mirror, despair flashed in her eyes. Her originally white and flawless cheeks were now covered by a palm-sized scar. She looked like a female ghost. "I'm disfigured. I'm really disfigured." This was the only thought in her heart at this time. "Don't run. Come back quickly. I've only treated half of it. I haven't removed the scar for you yet," Chin Haodong said as he took out a bottle of white ointment. This was also his exclusive jade skin nourishing ointment. It could remove the scars left by all kinds of injuries. "What? You said the scars on my body can be removed?" Jia Shihan's eyes, which had been close to despair, lit up with hope again. "Of course, you were injured in my house. I have to be responsible for you. Otherwise, what if you rely on me for the rest of your life?" Jia Shirhan lowered her head and said shyly, I burned it myself. How can I blame you? Even if I can't cure it, I will only find a place where no one is around to fend for myself. I won't rely on you. Qin Haodong suddenly felt defeated. Didn't this girl have the concept of jokes in her mind? Was it really okay to take everything so seriously? He picked up the jade skin nourishing ointment with his fingers again and began to apply it on Jia Shirhan's cheek. With the help of greenwood genuine qi, this kind of ointment immediately showed a magical effect. It slowly penetrated into the skin, and then the dark red scar began to fade little by little. Finally, it became a blood scab and fell off. Qin Haodong took a hot towel and wiped Jia Shirhan's cheeks clean. Then, he said, What do you think? Are you satisfied? Jia Shirhan ran in front of the mirror again and suddenly opened her mouth in surprise. The hideous scar on her face had now become white and tender skin. It was no different from the skin on other parts of her body. There was no trace of injury at all. Even the 2 small lumps from before had disappeared. After the shock, joy followed. After the joy, he realized that his upper body was naked, and he hurriedly raised his hands to cover his chest. Qin Haodong laughed and said, What? Do you only need to remove the scars on your face? You don't care about your body? Of course, Jia Shirhan wouldn't. She was a girl who pursued perfection and cared about every inch of her skin. Although she was very shy, she still walked in front of Qin Haodong, slowly put down her hands, and let him apply the ointment on her again. In order to make herself feel better, she once again used the art of deceiving herself and closed her eyes again. However, the burns on her body had been completely healed, and her skin had regained its sensitivity. Every time Qin Haodong's fingers touched her skin, she still felt a burst of heat. This strange feeling made her cheeks swell. It was so red that it seemed as if blood was about to drip out. She didn't know how long she had been suffering in this strange torment. She felt a warm feeling on her body again. It was Qin Haodong who used a hot towel to help her wipe off the blood scabs that had fallen off her body. Okay, the treatment is complete. After Qin Haodong finished speaking, he put away the ointment again. When he looked up at Jia Shirhan again, he immediately had a completely different feeling. Due to the burns just now, Jia Shirhan's skin looked extremely ferocious, which greatly weakened her beauty. In addition, out of a doctor's instinct, he didn't think too much even when facing the naked upper body during treatment. But at this time, it was completely different. The burns on Jia Shirhan's body had been completely healed. Her skin that was exposed to the air was smooth, white, and tender. Even the legendary jade person was nothing more than this. In particular, the 2 beauties in front of her chest had been restored to their former glory. This infinite beauty had infinite lethality for a normal man. Qin Haodong ran out of the bathroom and had been busy treating Jia Shirhan's injuries. He only had a bath towel wrapped around his waist. It was fine just now, but now that he saw such a scene, he immediately had a reaction. The bath towel under his lower abdomen bulged. At this time, Jia Shirhan also opened her eyes. When she saw that the skin on her body had completely recovered, she suddenly felt extremely shy. She wanted to find something to cover her chest, but her clothes had been torn in the kitchen, and there was nothing useful in the living room. In a hurry, she could only use her hands to cover her chest again. However, this half-covered feeling undoubtedly added a hint of temptation in the eyes of a man. Jia Shirhan also seemed to see Qin Haodong's situation. He had a strong body, solid abdominal muscles, and his whole body exuded the smell of a man. This was the first time she had looked at a man's body like this. She was both shy and curious. Suddenly, she found that the position of Qin Haodong's waist was a little wrong. She asked unexpectedly, "Little brother, what are you putting here? Why is it so high?" If it was any girl in modern society, she would never ask such an idiotic question. However, Jia Shirhan grew up in the mountains. In her life, there were only 2 women, her and her master. She had never seen other men, nor had she watched porn or anything like that. Therefore, her question was very simple, just out of curiosity. However, this question almost made Chin Haodong collapse. At this time, something that made him collapse even more happened. Under the continuous protest of the second in command, the originally loose bath towel was taken off all of a sudden. In other words, he had now become a pure naked man, and it was the kind of man under special circumstances. Although Jia Shihan was simple, she was not a fool. However, after seeing the scene in front of her, how could she not understand what was going on? She was stunned at first, and then she let out a sharp scream. Chin Haodong was so embarrassed that he almost died. He protected the second in command with one hand and protected his back with the other. He rushed into the bathroom in a panic. After turning on the cold water shower in the bathroom for a long time, he slowly regained his calm, and the second in command finally calmed down. Shameful, it's really shameful. As a dignified immortal emperor, he actually did such a shameful thing. Thinking about it made him feel embarrassed. However, he couldn't hide here all the time. He dried his body, changed into a set of clothes, and walked out of the bathroom. When he came to the hall, Jia Shihan had already changed into another set of clothes and stood there quietly. The blush on her cheeks had not yet faded. This was the first time she had seen what a man's thing looked like since she was a child. This was originally an extremely shameful thing. As a girl, she shouldn't think about it. However, people's thoughts were often strange. The more she wanted to control herself, the more that thing appeared in her mind, making her more and more embarrassed. When Chin Haodong walked in front of her, she couldn't help but glance at it. Seeing Jia Shihan's appearance, Chin Haodong didn't know what to say. The two of them once again fell into silence and awkwardness. In the end, Jia Shihan was the first to break the silence. She said with a red face, I'm sorry. I'm too stupid and caused you trouble. It's not your fault. I didn't teach you well and you got hurt, Chin Haodong said. You take a rest first. I'll cook for you. Jia Shihan said, how can this be? You're a man. Let me do it. Who said that men can't cook? Chin Haodong really didn't know where this little girl came from. Could it be that she had traveled through time from a feudal society? Now, every evening, looking at the kitchens of every household, 80 to 90% of them were men who were busy there. Why couldn't men cook? It's master who said that cooking is a woman's business. Chin Haodong shook his head and said, you've just been injured, and you're not familiar with the gas stove. Take a rest first and watch TV for a while. I'll get the meal ready soon. With that, he turned and went into the kitchen. Yang Jinlong and the others were really well prepared. When they opened the refrigerator, there was meat, eggs, and vegetables inside. Chin Haodong first made a pot of rice, and then he got busy. 20 minutes later, he brought 4 side dishes and a pot of rice to the table. Seeing the 4 dishes that looked, smelled, and tasted good, Jia Shihan looked at Chin Haodong with extreme surprise. Do you men really know how to cook? What do you mean? Aren't they all here? Chin Haodong said as he filled a bowl of rice and sent it to her. Eat quickly. Jia Shihan hadn't eaten since morning, so she was indeed a little hungry. She first ate a small mouthful of rice, and then picked up a mouthful of vegetables. After chewing a few times, she cried, it's delicious. It's so delicious. The dishes you cook are even more delicious than mine. Eat more if it's delicious. Chin Haodong also picked up the bowl and chopsticks to eat. He said while eating, where are you from? From master. Then where does your master live? Master doesn't allow me to say it. Chin Haodong thought for a moment and asked, what's your master's name? Jia Shihan blinked her big eyes and said, master doesn't allow me to say it. Chin Haodong also wanted to know the origin of this girl, but it seemed that it would not be easy. Then what's your purpose in coming to Shanghai? Master doesn't allow me to say it. Qin Haodong was completely speechless. He was completely defeated. Then what does your master want you to say? You can't say anything except your own name. We're friends now. Can't we even say it between friends? I can't. Jia Shihan said, Master said that there are many bad people outside, and they are very cunning, so you can't say anything, don't believe anyone. Seeing that he couldn't get anything out of her, Qin Haodong said with annoyance, in that case, why did your master ask you to come out? Jia Shihan said cutely again, Master doesn't allow me to say it. Qin Haodong was going crazy. Is your master's name not allowed to say it? Jia Shihan said, he doesn't allow me to say his name either. Chapter 459. Qin Haodong was completely defeated. He thought for a moment and said, I'll guess. If I'm right, you nod. If I'm wrong, you shake your head. You don't have to say it, and it doesn't violate your master's rules. Is that okay? Jia Shihan thought about it. It seemed that there was no problem, so she nodded and agreed. Qin Haodong was secretly amused. This girl was too gullible. No wonder she signed a 3-year contract with Zhu Dongmei. He said, you used to be a warrior, right? Jia Shihan first nodded, then asked with a surprised face, how did you know? I guessed it. My guesses are very accurate. Qin Haodong smiled and said, did your master ask you to come to Shanghai to find someone? Jia Shihan shook her head. No. Then it must be related to the seal in your body? This time, she put down the bowl and chopsticks in surprise and asked with a shocked face, how did you know this? I'm a doctor. I saw it when I treated you just now, Qin Haodong said, how is it? Am I right? Jia Shihan hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. Qin Haodong asked curiously, how did the seal in your body come about? Was it placed by the enemy? Jia Shihan shook her head. No. Then it must have been your master? This kind of question was easy to guess. Since it was not the enemy, it must have been her master. Sure enough, Jia Shihan nodded. Why did your master put a seal on you? Did you make a mistake? No. Then did you break the rules and want to elope with someone else? Jia Shihan said with a red face, what? It's so unpleasant to hear. I've been with my master on the mountain. There are no other men at all. How could I elope? Besides, I'm not that kind of person. Qin Haodong scratched his head. This reason was really not easy to guess. He asked again, what level of cultivation did you reach before you were sealed? Were you a covert power warrior? Jia Shihan shook her head. Qin Haodong also felt that his question was too low level. With the power of the seal, she should at least be a supreme power master. He asked again, then you must be a supreme power master? Unexpectedly, Jia Shihan still shook her head. Qin Haodong asked in surprise, no way. Have you entered the Saint Realm? Jia Shihan shook her head again. Actually, I don't know either. Anyway, I've been cultivating with Master since I was young. I don't know what level I'm at, let alone what you're talking about. Holy sh*t, he even brought this? At this time, Qin Haodong was full of curiosity about Jia Shihan's master. He taught her martial arts and didn't tell her his level. He was really a weirdo. He asked again, can I see your seal? Maybe I can untie it for you. Jia Shihan shook her head, no, Master said that I can only rely on myself to unlock this seal. If others help me, they will only harm me. Hearing what she said, Qin Haodong could only give up the idea. After that, the two of them chatted as they ate. He couldn't get too much information by just guessing, so that was all he could ask. After dinner, Qin Haodong asked, what do you usually do? Jia Shihan said, play the zither. And then? Isn't there any other entertainment? Jia Shihan thought for a moment and asked, does eating and sleeping count? Qin Haodong was speechless. You don't do anything else besides this? Jia Shihan said, I used to practice martial arts, but now that my cultivation is sealed, I can only play the zither. You can't do this. You will be out of touch with society. Qin Haodong said, I'll go to school later. You should also go out for a walk. As a person, you should always be in touch with society. Jia Shihan shook her head and said, I won't go. I feel that they are all bad people. Qin Haodong said, it's not as serious as you said. In fact, there are still many good people in this society. How about this? There are no fruits at home. Later, you go out and buy some fruits and walk around. He did this because he wanted Jia Shihan to exercise more and let the girl who came out of the mountains mature as soon as possible. Jia Shihan hesitated for a moment and said, well, I'll listen to you. Qin Haodong took out a stack of bills from his pocket and handed them to her. He said, you can use this money first. It's our living expenses. Jia Shihan showed the bank card that Li Hui paid for and said, I have money here. You take it first. There are some small places where you can't use a bank card. After Qin Haodong said that, he gave the money to Jia Shihan and left the villa. He had to complete the registration today. Tomorrow, he would carry out the bodyguard task. Today was the day when the freshmen of Shanghai Medical College would register. Since the morning, there had been a sea of people here and it was very lively. Many seniors had put on volunteer clothes and were here to serve the freshmen. Although they were volunteers, in fact, most of the people who came out to help were single dogs with ideas. They wanted to see if there were any high-quality junior sisters who would come to register this year, so that they could get close to them first and solve the problem of being single as soon as possible. Because of this, whenever a female student with a little bit of beauty came here to report, there would immediately be a few volunteers rushing up to her. They carried their luggage and acted as guides. They were extremely enthusiastic. On the contrary, when the male students came here, it was much quieter. Those single dogs in volunteer clothes pretended not to see them, and their eyes were still wandering around the girls. Under an old locust tree, two volunteers, one tall and one short, were chatting. The tall one was called Zhong Angua, a third-year student. He was 195 meters tall and was the captain of the school basketball team. This guy was not only tall, but also a little handsome. His family conditions were good, so he could be regarded as a famous school hunk in the school. Over the years, with his outstanding appearance and the gold-lettered name of the basketball captain, he had played with a lot of girls. He changed girlfriends faster than his clothes. The reason why he came here to volunteer today was to see if there were any good girls among the new girls. The small boy standing next to him was called Lu Wei, a guard of the school basketball team. He had been following Zhong Angua as a henchman and getting some food and drink. The two of them stood under the tree for a full hour, but they did not go over to help others. Zhong Angua spat fiercely to the side and said discontentedly, Xiao Wei, why are all the freshmen who came to register this year like this? I looked at them for a long time, but none of them were pleasing to my eyes. Boss, your standards are too high. Lu Wei said with a smile on his face, we came a little late today. I heard that there were a few very beautiful girls in the morning, but we didn't make it in time. Just as Zhong Angua was about to say something, his eyes suddenly lit up. Not far away, a very tall girl came over. There were many students coming and going, but this girl gave off the feeling of a crane in a flock of chickens. She was wearing a white shirt, and although it was tucked into a pair of jeans, her waist still looked extremely slender, and her chest was even more perky. She had delicate cheeks and a bouncing ponytail behind her head, giving off an unruly feeling. What a beauty! Let's go and have a look. After Zhong Angua finished speaking, he immediately hurried in the direction of the girl, for fear that she would be taken by others if he was a little late. Li Meiyu held the admission notice in one hand and dragged her suitcase slowly on the road. She didn't know what was wrong with her grandfather. Not only did he let her go to school in Huaxia, but he also chose a medical university and majored in traditional Chinese medicine. It was said that the master had told her that only here could she avoid the disaster of her life. No matter what, she finally managed to escape from her rigid grandfather, who was extremely strict with her, and finally fought for the freedom she wanted. Over the years, she had really had enough of her grandfather's discipline. As soon as she arrived in Shanghai, she indulged herself and went to the bar to drink alone. As a result, she met a group of hooligans not long after she went in. Fortunately, she met a handsome young man who was very good at martial arts and saved her. This matter made her very scared. She regretted refusing the bodyguard sent by her grandfather. However, she was competitive and did not bow to her family. She went to the Shanghai Medical College alone to register. While she was thinking about what had happened last night, a tall figure suddenly came to her. "Junior sister, you're here to register, right? Do you need help?" Li Meiyu looked up and saw a tall boy who was more than 1.9 meters tall standing in front of her with a bright smile on his face. But for some reason, Li Meiyu did not like this smile. She felt that there were too many things in it. It was not as comfortable as the pretty boy last night. "No need. I can do it myself." She had always liked to be independent and stubborn. Otherwise, she would not have gone to Shanghai alone, so she did not hesitate to refuse Zhong Anghua, who was posing. Zhong Anghua was slightly stunned. He did not expect that his prey would refuse him. But soon, he adjusted his mood and said to Li Meiyu, "Junior sister, let me introduce myself. I'm your senior brother in the 3rd year of college. My name is Zhong Anghua. I like playing basketball. I'm the captain of our school's basketball team. If you like basketball, I can introduce you to our school team." Li Meiyu did not speak, but she felt that this person was more and more annoying. He was even more annoying than the pretty boy she had met last night. Thinking of the pretty boy, she could not help but feel annoyed. Originally, that guy had helped her, so she should thank him. Who knew that he had spanked her? She was a girl who was already 19 years old. She had never been spanked in her life, but she had been spanked by him. If she met that guy again, she must teach him a lesson. She was secretly angry. Suddenly, her expression froze and she stopped moving forward quickly. Not far in front of her, the pretty boy was standing there with his hands in his pockets, whistling leisurely. It seemed that he was looking at the gate of the Shanghai Medical College. Seeing that Li Meiyu had finally stopped, Zhong Anghua thought that his attack had worked. He reached out and took the admission notice from Li Meiyu's left hand. He opened it and praised, "Li Meiyu, junior sister, your name is really nice. It's as beautiful as you." Seeing that this annoying guy had snatched her admission notice, Li Meiyu said with a sullen face, "Do you know that it's very impolite of you? Give me back the notice." Zhong Anghua laughed and said, "Beauty, why are you so distant? Our Shanghai Medical College is very big. It's very difficult for you to find a place to register by yourself. It's good for me to take you there." At this time, Lu Wei also ran over and said flatteringly, "That's right, junior sister. Senior brother Anghua is the captain of our school's basketball team. He has a good physique and is also handsome. There are many girls chasing after him. No matter what difficulties you encounter, he can solve them." Zhong Anghua also laughed and said, "Yes, even if you lack a boyfriend, I can help you." Li Meiyu said angrily, "Give me back the notice, or I'll call the police." Chapter 460. Call the police? Hearing her words, Zhong Anghua and Qin Haodong immediately laughed arrogantly. "We're helping the freshmen register. We didn't do anything illegal. The police can only give us a banner when they come." Li Meiyu was annoyed by Zhong Anghua's shameless face. At the same time, she missed the days when she had a bodyguard. If the bodyguard was by her side, she would definitely beat this guy up and take back her notice. At this time, she suddenly thought of Qin Haodong, who was standing in front of her. This guy had just spanked her last night. She couldn't take advantage of him for nothing. "Yes, let's do that." Let him help me get the notice back. Although Zhong Anghua looked tall and strong, she had seen Qin Haodong's skills last night. He could fight 10 people at once. In short, she didn't like either of them. As long as they fought, she would be happy to see the result no matter who won or lost. If Qin Haodong defeated Zhong Anghua and took back her admission notice, it would be the best. If Qin Haodong was beaten by Zhong Anghua, he deserved to spank her last night, which could be regarded as revenge for her. No matter how she thought about it, Li Meiyu felt that it was a good way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. She immediately dragged her suitcase and ran over. She hugged Qin Haodong's arm and said in a charming voice, "Honey, I finally found you." Qin Haodong looked at the gate of the Shanghai Medical College. Just as he was about to step in, a fragrant wind suddenly came over, and then he was hugged by someone. He looked back and saw a very delicate girl holding him. She looked a little familiar. He looked at her carefully again and realized that it was the girl who had changed her clothes last night. "Hey! What are you doing? Are you going to use me as a gun again? Let me go." Last night, he had been used by this girl. Although Qin Haodong didn't hate her, he didn't like her either. He tried to push Li Meiyu away, but she was hugging him too tightly. He couldn't push her away too hard, so he couldn't push her away. "Honey, you're her boyfriend. Now someone is bullying me. They robbed me of my admission notice. Help me get it back." Li Meiyu still held his arm tightly, pointing at Zhong Anghua and Qin Haodong. "Big sister, you guys can play however you want, but don't bring me along, okay? I don't know you, and I'm not your darling, so let me go, okay?" Li Meiyu was annoyed when she saw that such a beauty took the initiative to throw herself at him and act coquettishly and cute, but he was indifferent. If Qin Haodong didn't take the bait, then her method of killing 2 birds with 1 stone would be useless. At this time, Zhong Anghua laughed unscrupulously and said, "Li Meiyu, why are you doing this? Look at the man you found. He's really too cowardly. He's so scared when he sees me that he doesn't even dare to admit his identity. How can such a man give you a sense of security? In the future, play with me, and I'll protect you from anything." Qin Haodong was about to leave when he heard Zhong Anghua's words. Li Meiyu, wasn't she the girl he wanted to protect? It can't be so coincidental, right? He asked, "Are you sure your name is Li Meiyu?" Li Meiyu glared at him and said angrily, "Nonsense. What else should I be called if not Li Meiyu?" "Baby, why are you angry? I was just joking with you." No matter what, she was still his employer. She spent 1 million yuan a day, so he had to do something for her. Of course, this little girl took the initiative to come to him, so he had to collect some interest. After confirming Li Meiyu's identity, Qin Haodong immediately put his arms around her slender waist and held her intimately in his arms, as if he had changed into a different person. Li Meiyu didn't expect that Qin Haodong's attitude would change 180 degrees. She was taken advantage of again. However, she had said that they were a couple, so she could only swallow it and let him hug her like this. "Honey, they robbed me of my acceptance letter," Li Meiyu said as she pointed to Zhong Anghua. She wanted to make the 2 of them fight as soon as possible. It would be best if both of them were beaten black and blue. Qin Haodong tightened his arms around her waist and whispered in her ear, "Baby, don't worry. I'll get the letter back for you right away and ask him to apologize to you." It was the first time that Li Meiyu had been so intimate with a man. Feeling Qin Haodong's strong arms and strong manly aura, her heart was beating fast, and her cheeks were red and hot. Hearing his words, Zhong Anghua curled his lips and said disdainfully, "Boy, you are also a freshman who came to register this year, right? Do you know who I am? You dare to say anything. Aren't you afraid of losing your tongue?" Then he put Li Meiyu's letter into his pocket, and then crossed his hands. His 10 fingers made a crackling sound, and he put on a posture that he would fight if there was any disagreement. Originally, there were a lot of people around. Seeing that there was something happening here, they immediately gathered and surrounded the place. There were many people who knew Zhong Angua. Seeing his posture, they knew that the pretty boy opposite him must have suffered a lot. Qin Haodong didn't care at all. He let go of Li Meiyu in his arms and took 2 steps forward. He reached out to Zhong Angua and said, "Give me back the letter." Although he was also 180 meters tall, standing in front of Zhong Angua, who was tall and big, he always gave people a feeling of weakness. The crowd began to whisper, "Who is this pretty boy? Does he want to die? He even dares to provoke Zhong Angua." That's right. These people on the school basketball team have always fought without caring about their lives. It seems that he will suffer. Is this man out of his mind? He even asked Zhong Angua for the letter directly. How could he give it to him? I guess it's inevitable that he will be beaten up. Li Meiyu, who was standing behind, tidied up her clothes, gritted her teeth, and thought bitterly in her heart, "Do it. Do it. You two are so annoying. It's better to beat them to the ground and make them unable to get up." She was not only dissatisfied with Zhong Angua's rogue behavior, but also dissatisfied that Qin Haodong had just taken advantage of her, so she was full of hope that the 2 of them could fight immediately. However, the next scene surprised everyone. Zhong Angua, who was tall and big, was out of character. Like a good baby, he took out the admission letter from his pocket and respectfully handed it to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong took the letter and looked at it. Then he said, "Don't you feel ashamed of bullying a female classmate? Hurry up and apologize to my girlfriend." Hearing what he said, many people thought that Zhong Angua would definitely go berserk. Even Lu Wei, who was next to him, was ready to fight. As long as Zhong Angua showed any signs, he would immediately make a move. However, the result was beyond everyone's imagination again. Zhong Angua was like an obedient primary school student. He respectfully came to Li Meiyu and bowed to the ground. "I'm sorry. It was my fault just now. Please forgive me." The lenses around them shattered and fell to the ground. No one could believe what they were seeing. What the F***CK, what's going on? Did Zhong Angua's head get kicked by a donkey? Zhong Angua actually bowed his head and apologized to others. Did the sun rise from the west? I guess this young man must be the young master of a big family, or the illegitimate son of the principal. Otherwise, how could Zhong Angua be so obedient? Lu Wei's mouth was wide open. He knew Zhong Angua's temper very well. This guy had always been simple and rude. He never admitted defeat. In addition, his family condition was good. It was normal for him to be rude and unreasonable. How could he bow his head and apologize to others? But the fact was in front of him, so he had to believe it. Li Meiyu was also stunned. How could this be? The script was not designed like this. Shouldn't the 2 of them fight for her? At least one side should be beaten black and blue, or even both sides should be injured. Why did this big man apologize to her like this? Only Qin Haodong knew what had happened. He had never been a violent person. Since the mind manipulating could solve it, why did he have to fight? He turned to look at Li Meiyu and said, "Baby, how is it? Are you satisfied with his attitude?" Since Zhong Angua had already bowed his head and apologized, Li Meiyu had nothing to say. She could only nod. "Then let's go," Qin Haodong said as he held Li Meiyu's little hand in his. The 2 of them walked into the school together, just like a real couple. Li Meiyu wanted to take her hand back, but she failed after trying several times. She could only let Qin Haodong hold her hand like this. The people around were waiting to watch the fun, but they didn't expect it to end like this. Those who didn't know Zhong Angua felt that this big man was too cowardly. Those who knew Zhong Angua really didn't understand what had happened to him today. Why did he bow his head and apologize to a pretty boy? It wasn't until Qin Haodong and Li Meiyu's figures disappeared in the crowd that Zhong Angua's body shook slightly and his expression returned to normal. He came to his senses and looked around. Everyone was looking at him with contempt, while Li Meiyu and Qin Haodong had already disappeared. He turned around and said to Lu Wei, "What's going on? What just happened?" Lu Wei asked in surprise, "Boss, don't you remember? You just returned the notice to that guy and bowed to that woman to apologize." "What? I bowed to that woman and apologized? You're not talking nonsense, are you?" Zhong Anghua couldn't believe his ears. "Yes, boss. There are so many people watching. How dare I lie?" Only then did Zhong Anghua know why the people around him were looking at him with contempt. He said with annoyance, "Why didn't you stop me?" Lu Wei said innocently, "Boss, I don't know what you mean. I thought that little white guy was a great person." "Bullshit." After Zhong Anghua got angry, he thought for a moment and said, "I think that guy must have learned hypnotism. I accidentally fell into his trap just now." Lu Wei thought for a moment and said, "It seems to be true. You seem to be possessed. You listen to whatever that guy says. Let's go first. That little bastard must be a freshman in our school. I can't spare him." After Zhong Anghua finished speaking, he left in disgrace under many people's contemptuous eyes. After Li Meiyu and Qin Haodong walked for a while, she shouted angrily, "Rascal, let me go." Qin Haodong let go of Li Meiyu's hand and said with a smile, "Last night, you hugged me and called me husband. Today, you chased me and called me darling. You took the initiative to come to me. Why do you think I'm a rascal? You've helped me twice. I thank you, but don't think that you can have improper thoughts. You're not qualified to be my boyfriend." Knowing that this girl was his employer, Qin Haodong was not angry. He said with a smile, "Then tell me, what will your future boyfriend look like? Don't tell me he's wearing golden armor and riding on colorful auspicious clouds. Your boyfriend is a monkey." Li Meiyu said, "My boyfriend must be handsome and a great hero. In short, he can't be like you." Chapter 461. Qin Haodong knew that this little girl was angry with him, so he didn't care about her words at all. However, after listening to her words, his heart was moved. He was about to become this little girl's bodyguard. If she ran all over the place and he had to chase after her to protect her, he would tire himself to death. During the day, they were in the same school. Nailan Wushuang also arranged for them to be in the same class through her connections. But what about at night? Could it be that he had to stand guard in front of the girls' dormitory every day? The best way to avoid this kind of situation was to live together as a couple. Thinking of this, Qin Haodong suddenly took Li Meiyu's hand and stared deeply into her eyes. "I find that I suddenly fall in love with you. Give me a chance to pursue you. Will you be my girlfriend?" Li Meiyu was startled. They were just bickering, but Qin Haodong really wanted to pursue her. She asked subconsciously, "Are you serious?" Of course it's real, more real than pearls. Of course, Qin Haodong didn't want to pursue Li Meiyu. But in order to be less tired in the future, he had to use this method. "No, I already said that you don't meet the requirements of my boyfriend." Although Li Meiyu refused, her tone was much softer than before. "Don't be in such a hurry to reject me. Actually, I have a lot of good points. Since I've helped you twice, can you give me a chance to pursue you?" Qin Haodong said as he took the suitcase from Li Meiyu. "I'll be here in the future. You don't have to do this kind of hard work. Also, I can guarantee your safety. If you encounter any hooligans, just leave it to me." Li Meiyu looked at the man in front of her again. She had to admit that he was really handsome and good at martial arts. She was also very grateful to him for saving her. She was just dissatisfied that he had spanked her last night. But it was also her fault. Li Meiyu looked at the man in front of her again. She thought about it and said, "Well, I'll give you a chance, but it's just a chance, not a real boyfriend. Okay, don't worry. I'll be the best boyfriend this year." Qin Haodong took Li Meiyu's hand and said, "Let's go." "Let's go." Li Meiyu said, "You're just a pursuer. You can't hold my hand." Qin Haodong didn't let go. He smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Why bother about such a small thing? With my strength, it's only a matter of time before I catch up with you." Li Meiyu tried to shake him off but failed, so she let him pull her. The two of them walked to the reporting office together. She asked, "Are you also a student of Shanghai Medical College?" Qin Haodong said, "Yes, I'm in the Department of Chinese Medicine." "Which department are you in?" "I'm also from the Chinese Medicine Department." "I didn't expect us to be in the same class." Although Qin Haodong had already known this result, he still put on a surprised expression and said, "What a coincidence. It seems that we are really fated." The two of them were from the same faculty, so they naturally went through the relevant procedures together. Soon, they finished the admission procedures and received the dormitory keys. According to the school's rules, today was the reporting time. Tomorrow, everyone would have time to tidy up. The day after tomorrow, they would officially go to class. Qin Haodong asked Li Meiyu, "Where are you going?" "Since I've already registered, of course I'll go to the dormitory." "All right, I'll send you there." Qin Haodong accompanied Li Meiyu to the girls' dormitory and said, "Are you going to live in the dormitory in the future?" Li Meiyu said, "Of course. If I don't live in the dormitory, do you think I'll live with you?" Yes, that's what I mean." Qin Haodong said in a hurry, "Why don't you live with me today?" Li Meiyu's legs went soft and she almost fell to the ground. Was Huaxia so open-minded now? They just met for the first time and they were going to live together? Qin Haodong reached out to support her and explained, "Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking you to live with me." Li Meiyu glared at him and said, "We're living together. What is it if it's not cohabitation?" "Well, my house is very big. It's a 4-story villa with many rooms. You can choose any one to live in." Qin Haodong said, "It's inconvenient to live in the dormitory in college. It's better to live outside." Li Meiyu looked at Qin Haodong and said, "Are you sure you have a 4-story villa in Shanghai? Not a 4-square-meter rental house?" "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" Qin Haodong pointed to the Shanghai No. 1 community not far away and said, "It's over there. It's not far from the school. It's very convenient to live there." Li Meiyu thought about it. If that was the case, it was really good. She had never lived in a dormitory since she was a child. She was afraid that she would not be able to adapt to the collective life. However, she was a girl. It felt a little inappropriate to live in Qin Haodong's house after meeting him for the second time. Qin Haodong made this suggestion in order to protect Li Meiyu. He also knew that it was a little hasty, so he said, "Think about it carefully. You can go to my house with me. And don't worry, it's not just the two of us. There's another friend who is also a girl. You can live with her." Li Meiyu said in surprise, "What? There's another girl in your house? Are you living together? What are you thinking?" Qin Haodong said, "She's just a friend of mine. She just moved in at noon today. It has nothing to do with living together." They talked as they walked. From the reporting office to the girls' dormitory, they had to pass the basketball court. At this time, there were 7 or 8 people playing on the basketball court. These people were playing well and were very skilled. More than a dozen people gathered around to watch the fun, and several girls kept shouting and cheering. It had to be said that boys who could play basketball easily attracted the attention of girls. On the court, a big man received a pass from his companion. He quickly dribbled and broke through. Finally, he made a slam dunk and poured the basketball into the basket. There was a burst of cheers around. A boy next to him wiped the sweat on his forehead and said, "Boss Zhong, what's wrong with you today? Did you take medicine? Why are you so fierce?" The big boy who had just dunked was Zhong Ongua. He was playing with Lu Wei and several of his teammates from the school team. Lu Wei said, "Boss Zhong is angry. He just met a freshman and was fooled by that guy. He even took away the woman that Boss Zhong liked." The boy's name was Zhang Chao. After hearing Lu Wei's words, he immediately shouted, "A freshman dares to offend Boss Zhong. Does he not want to stay in our school anymore?" Lu Wei said, "Who knows? Maybe that guy is new and doesn't know Boss Zhong's reputation in our school." As soon as he finished speaking, his expression suddenly froze. His eyes were fixed outside the court. Zhang Chao asked, "Wei, what's wrong?" Lu Wei pointed to Qin Haodong and Li Meiyu, who were walking over, and said, "It's them. Boss Zhong likes that woman, and that man is the freshman who fooled him. Damn, he's rebelling against them. I'll teach him a lesson now." The members of the school basketball team had always been used to fighting fiercely. Zhang Chao was one of the best among them. After hearing Lu Wei's words, he immediately went to find trouble with Qin Haodong. At this time, he found that Zhong Anghua had already walked over with a basketball. "Boy, I didn't expect to see you again so soon." He looked at Qin Haodong with a cold expression. Zhong Anghua was originally the focus of the court. As soon as he moved, everyone's eyes immediately followed him. Who is this boy? He looks like a freshman. How dare he provoke Boss Zhong? That girl is so beautiful. I give her 99 points. She's the kind of girl I like. If it weren't for the man standing next to her, I would give her 100 points. I know what's going on. This girl is the woman that Boss Zhong likes. She was taken away by that toy boy. Qin Haodong was trying to persuade Li Meiyu to live with him. He didn't expect to see Zhong Anghua, the annoying guy, at this time. He frowned and said, "To be honest, I really don't want to see you." At this time, several people on the court also stood behind Zhong Anghua and looked at Qin Haodong fiercely. Seeing this scene, Li Meiyu was not nervous at all. She stood behind Qin Haodong and watched all this with interest. She wanted to see how this man would solve the current trouble. Zhong Anghua raised his hand to stop his teammates behind him. He held the basketball in his hand and said to Qin Haodong, "Do you dare to fight with me one-on-one?"